What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, Errol, one-time Spence, and trainer Derek James running for their lives from Iceman Bud Crawford. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life for riches, huh? That life for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, we're back. Let's talk some boxing. All right, so today we're going to talk about the Duck Chronicles, the continuing saga of Errol Spence ducking Iceman Bud Crawford, as he has been ducking Crawford for the past 2 years now. Ever since Terrence Crawford came to 147 pound and challenged the welterweight, they have been ducking him. And as we know, Errol Spence has been in the forefront of this whole ducking conspiracy. So recently, Derek James, as he's wont to do, he comes on, I guess Errol Spence, the team sent him out there to do some damage control after the Crawford Kell Brook fight, where Terrence Crawford, dispatched Kell Brook in 4 rounds. Shout out to Kell Brook. And so basically what happened after that was, the haters, mostly these LDBC guys, went into shock. Okay, basically they went into shock after what Crawford did to Brook, because many of them, and the Errol Spence fans as well, many of them had predicted that Brook would beat Crawford. Some of them actually picked Brook against Crawford. Okay, I mean, go figure. But that's what happened. So a lot of these guys, expected Brook to beat Crawford, in their basically their vain imaginations. And so when that didn't happen, and not only didn't that happen, but Brook basically Crawford, he basically dispatched Brook in 4 rounds, which is quicker than Triple G, and much quicker than Spence did. All these guys and these haters, and these Spence fans went into shock, and basically they're still in shock as of this video I'm making right now, 2 weeks later, basically. So naturally, the team, the Spence team, sent out Derek James to do some damage control, because people started demanding the Crawford Spence fight after they saw what happened with Brook. Everybody was like, hey, we have to see the Spence Crawford fight. Even a lot of Errol Spence, diehard fans are starting to request that fight now. When previously they had wanted Crawford to fight everybody else but Spence. They try to put their main sacrificial lamb that they try to put in front of Crawford is Sean Porter. They want Crawford to fight Sean Porter, before he fights Spence. And I'm pretty sure once, if Crawford was to fight Sean Porter, they would find somebody else, to put in front of him before he can fight Spence. But basically they want Crawford to fight everybody else but Spence, which is strange. But it is what it is. That's what's going on, though. And so we see the same narrative coming from all these LDBC haters and commentators, and we see that same narrative coming from Derek James. Okay, so here Derek James comes out, right, and he says that Errol Spence, he didn't really talk much about Spence. He spoke mostly about Crawford. He said that Crawford had the weakest resume of all the pound for pound fighters. Imagine that. Okay, now here's a guy who's on the pound for pound list, who was cleaned out a whole division, right? That is Crawford at 140, moves up to 147, okay? Is on the verge of cleaning out the 147-pound division, but he would have done it already if actually Crawford would have cleaned out the 147-pound division already if these guys would fight him. But as we see, Manny Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao says he wants to fight Crawford, but saying that you want to fight Crawford and actually fight him is two different things. And we know that Errol Spence has been ducking Crawford for years, so that fight is not going to happen. It doesn't look like. So basically, if these two guys had fought Crawford, he would have been undisputed at 147 pounds by now. Okay, I mean those are the facts. I mean that's how I see it anyway. So but as we see, Errol Spence has been ducking that fight, and so has Manny Pacquiao, basically, because Manny Pacquiao is just sitting on the belt, not really fighting anybody, even though he says he would fight Crawford, but we're not seeing the fight happening, and so we don't know what's happening with that. Maybe they're in negotiations with that, and so that fight is going to happen. We don't know. Okay, but and in a funny, there's a funny point to this whole Manny Pacquiao thing. One of these LDBC haters, one of these commentators, and I'm not even going to mention his name. He was out there talking about, he had said that Manny Pacquiao came all the way from the Philippines, went to the fight with Spence and Mikey Garcia, and he thought that Manny was going to call out the winner of that fight. Okay, he said Manny was even in the ring. Okay, but after the fight, he said Manny called out Mikey Garcia, the guy that lost the fight. Okay, so basically he was saying Manny was ducking Spence. That's basically what he claimed, that Manny should fight Spence, this and the other. Now the same guy is talking about how Crawford shouldn't fight Manny. He should pick on somebody his own age, to fight, and he's bringing up all these other guys that Crawford is supposed to fight that's of this generation and of his age, and he should fight these guys. Why does he want to fight old man Manny Pacquiao? I mean, these guys are so silly. I mean, but then again, they might talk a lot of silliness and sound silly, okay, and sound stupid actually, but the reality is they're getting paid to say the things that they're saying, and they know, there's a method to their madness, basically, okay? So it is what it is, okay? Because why would Crawford want to fight anybody else when he's trying to clean out the division? That means that he wants to fight the people that have the belts. Manny has the belt. So why are you telling Crawford to go fight somebody else, his own age, when Manny has the belt? If Manny don't want to fight, then give the belt to somebody that's Crawford's own age, and then Crawford will fight that guy, whoever that might be. Okay, if that's the case, relinquish the belt. Okay, so these guys are so silly. I mean, it's so stupid what they're saying. Crawford should go and fight somebody's own age. Why would he? I mean, he has to fight the guys that's in the division that has the belts. Those are the guys that he wants to fight because he wants to be undisputed 147 pounds. So why is he going to fight somebody else that doesn't even have a belt? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Spence and Manny has the belts. Those are the guys he wants to fight. Okay? I mean, it's just it's basic math. I mean, so, these people out there, running these narratives, they sound so ridiculous. But, they got to run those narratives because they're getting a few dollars to do that. Okay? I mean, they have no integrity when it comes to boxing or, what's going on with the boxing world. They're just out there spinning narratives because they're getting a few chump change from, some of these fighters. And also, these fighters' teams are paying them, and, they're getting chat money from some of those decaf fans that follow them, that follow these channels, okay, because a lot of these fans don't know nothing about boxing, okay, they just what you call, they just following personalities, I mean, some of these YouTubers have become, what you call personalities, and so you have people, sycophants that follow these personalities and just repeat or mimic, or parrot whatever they say. Whatever these channels say, these people that follow them that they have nothing better to do, you know, they just repeat what these people are saying. Okay, and you know it's you know, I mean, it doesn't really, I don't think it does much for boxing myself. But anyway, the bottom line is that Derrick James comes out to do some damage control after the devastating knockout of Kell Brook by Terrence Iceman Crawford, and so you know he was on Fight Hub, you know, talking about the fight. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna play a little part of that so you can see for yourself what he actually said. I mean, this guy is hilarious, man. I mean, you know, check this out. Hold on for a second, okay?
This is 6-time IFBB Bikini Pro Champion Brina Martinez, and I take ZMA5 to make sure.
Over the weekend, we saw Terrence Crawford knock out Kell Brook in 4 rounds in a phenomenal way. Did you see the fight, and what'd you make of how Terrence looked in there?
I watched the fight. I mean, I had no comments on it. I don't know how it. I mean, I don't know how to take it. I mean, you know, I mean.
Did you think?
Okay. Did you see that? When the guy asked him the question, his eyes shifted to the right, and he, you know, I saw the fight, but I don't know how to answer that. Okay, I mean, you know, but let's continue and watch the interview a little more and see some more of what he's talking about. Okay, hold on for a second. Let me cue it up.
This is 6-time IFBB Bikini Pro Champion Brina Martinez.
Over the weekend, we saw Terrence Crawford knock out Kell Brook in 4 rounds in a phenomenal way. Did you see the fight, and what'd you make of how Terrence looked in there?
I watched the fight. I mean, I had no comments on it. I don't know how it. I mean, I don't know how to take it. I mean, you know, I mean.
Did you think he looked well? Like, you know, I know Errol. You went with Errol to fight Kell Brook. You know, like how did you feel Kell looked in there, and how did you feel that Terrence looked in there?
I think Kell Brook looked pretty decent. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think that what I think is that everybody looks good hitting the heavy bag, hitting the mitts. You know what I mean? And I think that that's kind of when he was landing those shots, it was like hitting the mitts. But it's like when you get hit back, that kind of tells where you are, right? Not so much about, because I mean, everybody looks great hitting the bag, hitting the mitts. And that's what I think about it. I mean, you know, who was hitting the mitts? It was, you know.
Who was hitting the mitts? Was it Terrence?
Kell was.
Kell. Okay, okay.
Kell was the one landing all the shots, most of the shots, you know. And then I said, like I said, everybody looks good hitting the mitts, but it's about when you get hit back. That was when he couldn't, you know. So that lets you know he was kind of shot. And I mean, even going into the fight, they had to know that. They had to know he was shot or whatever, but you know that.
Mm-hmm. Did you, by chance, listen to the comments that Bob said after the fight about making a potential fight with Errol and Terrence?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I mean, I don't watch a lot of media. I don't watch, but people send me stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aaron, you know, commented that if you know, the PBC and you guys or Danny, whoever wins, really wants to make a big pay-per-view fight, a real big pay-per-view fight, they have to come and fight Terrence. And that's Errol has been avoiding a fight with Terrence. He doesn't want to fight him because what we saw with Kell would happen with Errol. And Bob said, you know, it would happen in around the same time.
I'm talking about, I don't even know. I have no idea what he's talking about, because like I said, I didn't hear him say that. But I mean, man, listen, you know, I think they just want, I mean, they want something. We have Danny Garcia in front of us, who, as I stated before, even if you add Kell Brook on his resume, still doesn't add up to what Danny Garcia has done.
Okay. I mean, that is hilarious. And you see how he asked him about Errol Spence fighting Crawford, and he switched it around to talk about Danny Garcia's record. Didn't answer the question at all about the fight, you know, with Errol Spence. Say he didn't know. He people send him things. He don't know. I mean, see how he just totally, you know, didn't know what to say or what to do. I mean, anytime someone asks these guys about fighting Crawford, this is what happens. Okay, they start talking all kind of foolishness. You know what I mean? Pulling shit out the air, talking about this and that and whatever. And you know, that's basically, you know, has been, you know, what's been going on. Every time you ask Spence's team about fighting Crawford, this is what you get. Okay, he saw the way he folded his hands, you know, like got defensive, you know. So you know, we can see that, you know, we can see plainly just by watching that Derek James, you know, just the idea of Crawford get these guys totally discombobulated. They don't know what to do or what to say, you know, when you bring up Crawford. I mean, what more? How clearer can it be that these guys are totally terrified of fighting Crawford? I mean, we see that right there, and this is Derek James, okay, and you can see that, okay. He couldn't even answer the question. He started talking about Danny Garcia's record and this, that, and the other. So, I mean, you know, it's pretty clear by now. I mean, it's been 2 years, people, and every time, you know, they ask these guys about fighting Crawford, they're bringing up Porter, they're bringing up pound for pound status. You know, they bring up Canelo. You know, they want to fight Canelo now. You know, which is another you know, ducking. You know, they basically, so now the new thing, what they're doing now is they're bringing up Canelo's name, basically clout chasing Canelo, saying that you know, they want to fight Canelo, and then right after that, you know, if you look at the YouTube channel, you see that they're LDBC fanboys and sycophants, you know, are talking about how, oh yeah, the Canelo fight is an easier fight to make than the Crawford fight because of this and because of that, and you know, so basically it's just, you know, so Errol Spence teams comes out with the talking point or the narrative, and then the YouTubers, you know, the LDBC haters and YouTubers, they pick it up and they run with it, okay? So, you know, because they get a few bucks on the side or whatever. So this is, you know, what's going on, okay? And so now the new talking point or the new narrative is that Canelo is an easier fight to make than fighting Crawford. I mean, just think about that for a second, okay? Canelo's last fight was at 175 pounds, okay? Somebody had mentioned this to Canelo, and he said, "Oh, you know, the size is going to be a problem because you know, he's a small guy." You know, so right now we're seeing that people that want to fight Canelo, like Jamal Charlo, and you know, Caleb Plant, and these guys, they're going to have to go up to 168 pounds to fight Canelo if they want to fight Canelo. Okay. Canelo is not fighting at 160 pounds, but here you have Derek James and the Spence team talking about, you know, and fighting Canelo at 160 pounds. Okay, Canelo is not coming back down to 160 pounds. Okay, why should he? Okay, so this whole idea of Spence fighting Canelo, or that Canelo is an easier fight to make than Crawford, just shows you how much these guys actually fear Crawford, that they're willing to send, you know, Errol Spence all the way to 160 pounds to fight Canelo instead of fighting somebody in their own weight division, which is Crawford, you know, because the fight, you know, this fight is not difficult to make as they keep saying. It's an easy fight to make because Crawford wants to fight. He's been calling for the fight, okay? But, you know, the haters and the Spence and the Spence fanboys, you know, they don't want this fight. Okay, I mean, this would be the biggest fight in boxing right now, with the most money. But you know, nobody wants this fight from Spence camp. I mean, now you guys remember back in the day when Spence first came out, he was talking about, you know, strap season, man down, this, that, and the other. Okay, you know, you collecting all the straps. We don't hear that anymore. Okay, you don't want to collect the strap that Crawford has. Okay, all these guys, you know, we even hear one of these LDBC commentators, you know, he has to be the dumbest commentator out there, by the way. I mean, this guy, you know, he's out there talking about Crawford should fight people his own age. I mean, what he shouldn't fight. Why does he want to fight Manny Pacquiao? Manny Pacquiao has the belt. Okay, I said this before. I'm gonna say it again. Manny Pacquiao has the belt. So why would Crawford want to fight some guy, you know, that these people are trying to pick for him to fight when he's trying to clean out the division and become undisputed 140? In order for you to do that, you got to beat the guy with the belt, which is why he's calling out Spence and Manny Pacquiao. They're the only two guys left with the belts. So he's calling them out, and he's been calling them out for years. Okay, he used to call out Thurman when he had the belt, but Thurman lost the belt to Manny Pacquiao. Okay, so now Thurman, they're talking about he can fight Thurman. Fight Thurman for what? When he was calling Thurman out, Thurman didn't even want to fight him. As a matter of fact, not only was Thurman ducking Crawford, he was ducking Spence at the same time. And now, they're saying, Crawford, Spence should fight Thurman next, and he should fight Uga. And Spence don't want to fight Thurman because he remember when Thurman was ducking him. Just like how Thurman ducked Crawford, when they brought up the fight to him, he said, Crawford is barely a champ. Now he's not a champ at all, and he's out there in the fringes, trying to get fights. He can't get fights anymore, and he's out there talking about he want to fight this guy, he want to fight Spence, he want to fight Crawford, but he wants $10 million and all kind of nonsense. So, Thurman is out of it, okay? And, him fighting Crawford would be suicide for him. Okay, and which is why he wants $10 million to fight Crawford. Okay, so what is it that Thurman have that why Crawford should fight him when he wants to unify? He wants to unify, so he wants to fight the people with the belts. Okay, which is what champions do. So it is what it is. Okay, but again, this is what's going on now. So here we see, like I said, here we see that. Now Spence and his team. This is so hilarious, man. Now they're trying to call out CARNE-LO. They basically just clout chasing, like when Gary Russell was clout chasing Crawford. That's what they're doing. They're clout chasing CARNE-LO in an attempt, and which I think is a desperate attempt to avoid fighting Crawford, because a lot of people are calling for the Crawford fight now. Okay, a lot of people want this fight now, so they're trying to figure out a way how they can take people's attention away from the Crawford fight. So now they figure, let's call out CARNE-LO and chase and do some clout chasing with CARNE-LO. Maybe that would take people away from the Crawford fight. Okay, and that's basically what's going on. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so again, every time Crawford's name is mentioned, to Derek James or to Spence or to anybody in the team, okay, or to any of these LDBC haters, okay, they come up with all kind of mental gymnastics to say why Crawford should fight this guy or that guy or anybody else but fighting Spence. Okay, Derek James the same thing. Every time they bring up him, fighting Crawford, he comes up with all kind of fantastical reasons, why the fight should never happen. It is so funny. It's hilarious, man. I love it. These guys are in total fear of Crawford. Okay, you can't get in there. You can almost smell the fear on them. Okay, and so this is what's going on. Okay, especially after what happened with Book. Okay, because after they saw that fight, it was over. After that fight, Crawford might well just wrap it up, because he's not gonna get Spence now unless, like I said before, we're gonna have to drag Spence into the ring with Crawford for that fight to happen. Okay, that's just what it is. Okay, these guys, they don't want nothing to do with Crawford, man. Crawford put the fear of God into these guys, okay? And it's very apparent, when you see them talk about Crawford, okay? They're gonna come up with all kind of things and say all different type of things, to try and downgrade Crawford. But like I always say, if Crawford has the weakest record and he's this and he doesn't fight anybody, well, why don't you just go over there and take the belt away from him then? I mean, you know, that would be the logical thing to do. Because if I thought that a fighter was no good and he's not fighting anybody and he had a belt, you know, I would go over there and take the belt from him. I'll just call him out. But we don't see that happening at all, okay? We see them saying that Crawford ain't fought nobody, Crawford is this and that, and then they make a reason why they shouldn't fight Crawford, okay? So this is what's going on. And, it's very clear now to even the blind man that Errol Spence wanted nothing to do with Crawford. That, next thing he's going to be calling out AJ, Anthony Joshua, instead of saying that's an easier fight to make than fighting Crawford, okay? I mean, this is, like I said, this whole thing is ridiculous at this point, but again, we're going to keep the pressure on Spence and his team and Derek James. People out there that want to fight, we need to keep the pressure on these guys, okay? They got to stop ducking, okay? Stop running, stop hiding, okay? They're going to have to make this fight because the public is going to demand this fight. And they're demanding it right now. And not just the public, but people in boxing want this fight. Okay? But as again, it's not going to be easy to get this fight because, they got a whole host of guys out there, especially in the LDBC, people who, don't want to see this fight because they know what's going to happen. Okay? And so they're trying everything in the book for this fight not to happen. Okay? So it's up to us, the public out here at large, to demand this fight and to make sure, if we have to drag Spence into the ring against Crawford, that's what we're going to have to do, because other than that, we're not going to get this fight, people. Okay, so I'm telling you right now, we have to drag Spence into the ring with Crawford, and that's what's going on, because as you see, they don't want the fight. Okay, and so we have to drag him into the ring. So again, I'm going to say, let the dragging continue, okay? Let's keep the pressure on these guys to make this fight and stop making excuses, and stop running around talking foolishness about, fighting CANELO at 160 pounds and all this other nonsense that they're talking, We want to see this fight. This fight needs to happen, okay? And so we got to keep the pressure on. So, I think, you people, get the, a lot of you people know what's going on, and you get the idea by now that this fight needs to happen, and that the only people standing in the way of this fight is actually, Errol Spence and his team, okay, because they don't want the fight. So, that's pretty clear by now to even, a blind man, okay? So, let's keep the pressure on people. That's all I have for right now. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out. What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, Errol Spence turning into the laughing stock of boxing by clout chasing Canelo Alvarez and ducking Terrence Crawford. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the mind of a man, it's petty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, Thug life for riches, Thug life for riches, Pretty bitch, show me titties, And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights. And you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terrence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford?
That could happen. We got to see how it goes. But, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight CANELO Alvarez.
Okay, boxing fans, you heard it. Straight from the horse's mouth. The announcer asked Errol Spence, can we be done with all, the other people that talk about fighting these other guys? Can we be done? Can we just talk about Terrence Crawford? And what did Errol Spence say? Oh, it may happen. It could happen. But I could move to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez. Now, before, I did a video about that already, okay? As a matter of fact, here's the graphic for that video. Take a look at it. Errol Spence willing to fight Canelo in a desperate attempt at ducking Crawford. So you can go and check that video on my channel. You know, but let's continue. So again, anytime that Errol Spence is asked about Terrence Crawford, is always some excuse or some, you know, he never answered the question about Terrence Crawford. He's always making something up or diverting the question, or you know, slipping and diving and shucking and jiving. You know, so here it is. Doesn't want to talk about fighting Terrence Crawford. Now you can go and look at that video, the full video. You know, they go into it a little bit more, and you know, he's talking about fighting Terrence Crawford. If he fights Terrence Crawford, it's gonna be 60-40. Now he's mentioning 70-30 or whatever they want to give Crawford. That's what he basically said. So I mean, you know, it's at this point, it's somewhat embarrassing. You know, I mean, basically, you know, as far as I can see, Errol Spence has turned himself into a laughing stock. Okay, you know, and you know, anytime Terrence Crawford's name is mentioned, he starts shaking, and you know, it's very apparent right now. I mean, you know, talking about fighting Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez hasn't shown any interest in fighting Errol Spence at 160 pounds. Okay, we just saw Canelo fight at 168 against Callum Smith. Okay, great fight, by the way, except the fact that Callum Smith didn't show much. But anyway, Errol Spence basically has continued, you know, with his ducking conspiracy, refusing, you know, to entertain fighting Terrence Crawford under any circumstances, you know, putting all kind of obstacles in the way. First it was 60-40, now it's 70-30, which, you know, the 60-40 scenario was basically just another way to duck the fight, okay? Just putting up roadblocks to the fight, basically. It wasn't 60-40 against Porter. It wasn't 60-40 against Mikey Garcia. It wasn't 60-40 against Danny Garcia. So why is it 60-40 against Crawford? And whatever it was against Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Porter, or even Brook, nobody heard about what the actual numbers were. It was never made public. Okay, so even if it was 60-40 or whatever, it didn't make that public to you know, basically embarrass the fighters or to put an obstacle in the way of the fight. So, but here it is, you know, they're talking about publicly 60-40, 70-30, and even worse, whatever they decide to give Crawford. I mean, this is a ridiculous. I mean, I don't, you know, I mean, people. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, it's a crying shame, basically. I mean, Errol Spence is making himself into an embarrassment in the boxing community. You know, with his blatant, you know, shameless ducking of Terrence Crawford. I mean, this thing is ridiculous at this point. And so we see that Terrence Crawford is basically saying that, hey, you know, he put out a little thing on Instagram saying, and they said it was me. This chapter is closed. And I really don't blame him, because at the end of the day, you know, why even bother talking about fighting Errol Spence? I mean, he might as well just move on and you know, get other fights and forget about Errol Spence, because it's clear to anybody that can see here, you know, that Errol Spence doesn't want to fight Crawford. He's definitely afraid of this fight. Okay, and he's putting anything and everything in the way of actually making the fight. So I mean, it is what it is, people. I mean, I would love to see the fight myself, but at this point, I'm gonna have to agree with Terrence Crawford and just say that this fight is never gonna happen, because you know, Terrence, I mean, Errol Spence doesn't want the fight, and the only way we're gonna get this fight, like I've said before, is for us to drag Errol Spence into the ring with Terrence Crawford. That's the only way the fight is going to happen. We're going to have to, and I say we, I'm talking about this commentators, the fans, the boxing community. We're going to have to drag Errol Spence into that ring against Crawford, or this fight will never happen. Okay, and this is, so it is what it is. We can't sugarcoat this thing anymore. I mean, a lot of people still trying to make excuses, especially LDBC fanboys out there, talking about, oh, Errol Spence is making moves. He's playing chess. Right? Anytime he talks about ducking Crawford, they say, "Oh, Errol Spence is playing chess." I mean, that's why these fanboys out there saying, "Oh yeah, he's making business moves. Yeah, it's business." But these same clowns are out there talking about Canelo is ducking Charlo. Okay, because Canelo is making other fights, fighting people like Callum Smith and other people like that. Like he just collected another belt, and put it on his mantle. These same guys that say, "Oh, he should fight Charlo. He's ducking Charlo." But when Errol Spence is ducking Crawford, he's making business moves. So why isn't it business move when Canelo is not fighting Charlo? Why isn't that business move? Why isn't it that Canelo is making smart business moves? Why isn't Canelo playing chess? Okay? Yeah, so you see the double standard. These guys are jokers. Okay? At the end of the day, as far as I can see, Canelo is ducking Charlo. Errol Spence is ducking Crawford. And it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and, be a fanboy of one fighter or another fighter. I'm just going to tell it like it is. If Canelo is ducking, I'm going to say he's ducking. If Spence is ducking, I'm gonna say he's ducking. I don't care if Crawford is ducking, I'm gonna say he's ducking. Okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, because these guys, I'm trying to get an interview with these guys, or they might be throwing me a couple of dollars on the side, some chump change, or because I'm trying to please their fans or to stay in their good graces or whatever it might be. What these guys are doing. Most of these guys out there are probably getting a few dollars on the side from the team, whatever, maybe Spence team or whoever team that they're representing. Okay, when you know that they're not getting any money from the team, you will see them saying things like, "Oh, Canelo is ducking Charlo because they're not getting any money from Canelo. They might be getting a little dollars from Charlo's or the Charlo's camp or whatever." I mean, I'm just speculating, but I mean, that's how they roll. Basically, what they do, whoever they support and whoever they're getting a few dollars from, that's who they support and that's who they come out and run the narrative for. I'm not running a narrative for anyone. I'm going to tell it like it is. And, who don't like it, and that's just the way it's going to stay. Okay? So, at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, Canelo is ducking Charlo. Spence is ducking Crawford. And it's very plain. And he's been ducking Crawford for 3 years now. And at this point, he's not even trying to hide it. It's just shameless ducking. Okay? He's just doing it shamelessly. Okay? I mean, it's embarrassing. But again, folks, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it looks like the fight is not going to happen, like I said, because, I mean, you hear what Crawford had to say about it, that he's going to close this chapter because, I mean, how much can you chase a guy for a fight, Here it is, Errol Spence is showing up a Canelo fight. Not even, there's no fight coming up for Canelo and Spence. Nobody's demanding the Canelo Spence fight, okay? Nobody's asking for that fight. The only people talking about that fight is Spence and his team and his fanboys. There's nobody out there really saying, "Oh, that's the fight that we want to see next." Not even Spence fans want to see that fight next because they know what's going to happen. If Spence go up there against Canelo, it's a slaughter. Okay, so nobody wants that fight. Nobody's asking for that fight. But here it is. Spence is showing up at Canelo's fight, as if him and Canelo is gonna fight next, or somebody's asking for that fight. It's just basically clout chasing. Nobody's asking for that fight. But then the same Spence is out there talking about he doesn't know why Crawford is showing up at his fights. What do you mean you don't know why? Crawford is showing, and he wouldn't show up at any of Crawford's fight. Crawford is showing up at your fight because people are demanding that fight. You don't know why? I mean, people. I mean, it's ridiculous by now, okay? And, like I said, Spence is basically making himself into a laughing stock. He's losing a lot of points, with his shameless ducking of Crawford at this point. And I think a lot of his people are waking up to the fact, okay? And you know, sooner or later, okay, the tables are gonna turn, and you know he's gonna feel the pressure because people are really waking up and realizing that this guy is just, you know, just basically a ducking, okay? And there's no other way to put it. There's no nice way to put it. He's a ducker. I mean, he turned into a bigger ducker than Keith Thurman at this point. You know what I mean? So I mean, it is what it is. So maybe we'll see you know, Crawford fight some other guys out there in the welterweight if they're not scared to fight him. I mean, the only person I hear talking about fighting Crawford right now, and you know, people, you know, a lot of the Spence fanboys and some other people out there have been asking for that fight as well. They want to see, you know, Crawford fight Porter. I mean, and that fight could happen because Porter is the mandatory, okay, for Crawford. But you know, the fact of the matter is, I mean, yeah, he's the mandatory, but Porter hasn't activated the mandatory. I mean, it's up to Porter to activate it. It's not up to Crawford to activate it. You know what I mean? Porter is the mandatory, and if he really wants to fight, all he has to do is activate the mandatory, and the fight is going to happen. Because Crawford is not going to duck his mandatory. He's going to get stripped. Okay, so he's not going to duck a fight with Porter. You know, as a matter of fact, Crawford already came out and said he dares Porter to activate the mandatory, and if Porter activate the mandatory, he's going to stop Porter. Okay, so I mean, how you can't get any clearer than that. So the ball is in Porter's court. So Porter, if he really wants to fight against Crawford, all he has to do is activate the mandatory, and that's it. Okay, and the fight will be on, but we don't see that happening. So all this talk about Porter fighting Crawford is just talk. Okay, if Porter don't activate the mandatory, the fight is not going to happen. So Porter needs to step up to the plate and activate the mandatory, you know, and stop procrastinating and talking about it. He want to fight Porter. He's been talking about it. I mean, talking about he want to fight Crawford. He's been talking about that for like 6 months now, but he hasn't stepped up. He hasn't stepped up to the plate and activated the mandatory. Okay, I mean, it's just a push of a button. That's all it takes. So what's the holdup? Okay, so you know, talk is cheap at the end of the day. So I mean, I don't really think that Porter, you know, I doubt if he's going to fight Crawford. Okay, because he has a chance to get the rematch against Spence. Okay, Porter has a chance to rematch it because he's a mandatory for Spence as well. You know, he has worked his way up to become the mandatory for Spence. You know, so I'm more than likely that fight might happen. Okay, because you know, I think that Porter sees that Spence is looking a little weak, not as, you know, 100% like he was prior to the accident, and I think Porter believed that, you know, this version of Spence he can probably beat. I have an easier time fighting than the last version of Spence before the accident. So I think that he's, you know, basically backtracking, and you know, and wanting to fight. I think he's going to want to fight Spence instead of Crawford, because Crawford is a much tougher fight than you know, against Spence, because as we heard from even Porter himself, you know, he believed that, you know, Crawford can beat Spence. I mean, and he fought Spence, so he should know. So it looks like, you know, Porter's gonna, you know, is not gonna take the fight against Crawford. He's probably gonna fight Spence. And now, from what I know, you know, people talk about money this and money that, and we hear, you know, we hear Thurman talk about he won $10 million to fight Crawford. You know, I mean, you know, people. I mean, you actually have those fanboys out there talking about, yeah, Crawford should fight Thurman. I mean, fight Thurman for what? Thurman has no belt. He's basically irrelevant right now in boxing. Okay, he hasn't fought anybody in almost 2 years. Sitting on the sidelines after he got whooped by Manny Pacquiao. So he's just sitting there, you know, basically, you know, just withering away. Okay, I mean, he's not doing anything in boxing. So I mean, now I can understand if Thurman had worked his way up to become a mandatory for Crawford, like Porter did, okay, or like CARNE-LO did, or like anybody that's out there working, you know, and you know, trying to get themselves in a position to where they can become mandatory. He hasn't done any of that. He's not mandatory in any of the. He's not a mandatory in any of the division, whether it's WBC, WBA, WBO, or IBF. I mean, he just sitting on the sidelines doing nothing, and then he want to talk about he want $10 million to fight Crawford. Are you serious? This guy just needs to shut up and just sit on the sideline, get a job as an announcer, because the only thing he can really do is talk. Okay, the only thing he can really do is talk. He's a good talker. When it comes to, you know, boxing, he's basically retired or semi-retired. He hasn't been boxing for a while now, and you know, but you know, if he really wants to fight, he needs to go out there and, you know, earn his stripes. Okay, he got to go out there and earn it if you want to fight Crawford, because he hasn't done nothing to earn. As a matter of fact, when Crawford came to welterweight and challenged him, you know, and called him out when he had the 2 titles, when he had the double, I think at the time he had the WBC and the WBA belt, he said that Crawford was barely a champion and he wasn't really interested in fighting Crawford. Just like he was ducking Crawford and he was ducking Spence as well. Okay, but now, you know, that he has no belts, he's on the sideline and is basically irrelevant in the boxing game. He wants $10 million. Then he talk about, oh, we could have negotiated something. Negotiate what? I mean, at the end of the day, Thurman and Porter and Spence fought, okay, in that fight that they had. I think Porter only got $2 million for that fight against Spence. $2 million. Okay, I think they both got $2 million. Okay, so I mean, you actually have people out there talking about Thurman deserved $10 million, or he could, or at least $8 million. $8 million to do what? What has Thurman done to deserve $8 million in a fight against Crawford? He's not even a mandatory for anybody in any of the champions. Okay, who knows where he is in the rankings? The man is sitting on the sidelines, you know, playing the flute, you know, doing whatever he's doing, you know. So I mean, you know, it's a joke. Spence is, like I said, Thurman is irrelevant right now in boxing. Okay. If he wants to fight Crawford, if he, you know, because of his name, if he wants to cachet his name, you know, then maybe they can give him $2 or $3 million. I wouldn't even give him that much, $3 million. Okay, maybe a million, $1.5 million or something like that, and then okay, go ahead and fight down and take that fight. I mean, you want a title again? I mean, it's a chance to win the title, so you know, go ahead and take the fight. If you're really serious, okay, why not take the fight and to get the title, to get Crawford's title? Now, but he want to cash out for $10-8 million because he already know what's going to happen. He's not going to win the title against Crawford. He's going to lose. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is, man. People got to get serious about this boxing game right now. And right now, it looks to me like, you know, everybody is trying to push these guys, these PBC guys up there as if they're some great fighters. And then, you know, people like, I mean, these guys are basically retreads, okay? I mean, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, these guys are basically, I mean, not so much Danny Garcia, but Keith Thurman's a has-been, okay? I mean, I wouldn't pay $10 million to fight Keith Thurman. For what? Okay, so basically, you know, I think Keith Thurman just needs to sit on the sideline like he's been and just keep his mouth shut, okay? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the fight against Porter and Crawford. That would be a good fight, I would think. Okay, and Porter has earned his way up there to get that fight. So, but again, the ball is in Porter's court. He got to activate the mandatory for the fight to happen. So activate it, Porter, and you know, stop talking about fighting Crawford and fight him. Okay, I mean, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, so you know, in that same interview that we just saw with Spence, you know, he was talking about, oh, when he came back, he fought this champion Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is not a champion. You know, people talk about Danny Garcia's resume. What resume is that? His resume is losing to Spence and losing to Porter. That's his resume. I mean, how is he a champion? I mean, and if his resume is as good as Derek James was claiming, oh, you know, Danny Garcia got the better resume than Crawford. I mean, these guys are delirious. These guys are, you know, I don't know what, they're delusional. I mean, if Danny Garcia's resume is so great, why isn't he a champion? That's what answer that question. If Danny Garcia is such a great fighter and such a great and a quote unquote champion is Errol Spence is giving him a championship belt. I guess it's the Errol Spence championship belt because he's calling Danny a champion. Danny's not a champion. He lost the championship and he lost in both fights that he had at the elite level to Spence and to 3 times now. Spence, Porter, and Thurman. So I mean, if he was that great, why isn't he a champion? You see, if his resume is so good, according to Derek James, why isn't Danny Garcia a champion? I mean, people got to really see this thing for what it is. Okay, they're doing anything to try and belittle Crawford because Errol Spence is terrified of fighting Crawford, and that's what it is. Okay, he's so terrified, okay, that he wants to cloud chase CARNE-LO, okay, in an attempt to duck fighting Crawford. I mean, this thing is ridiculous at this point, man. So, I mean, again, like I said, the only way we're going to get Spence in the ring with Crawford at this point, we have to drag him in there. And, again, I don't really blame Crawford for getting fed up with all this Spence ducking. You know what I mean? He's been chasing Spence now for 3 years. Spence has been ducking him the whole way, kicking, screaming, and scratching, trying to get away from fighting him. And, just making excuse after excuse after excuse. Now it's the 60-40 conspiracy, to duck Crawford. Now then he's talking about 70-30. Then after that, he's talking about whatever you want to give them. So, I mean, we can see plainly that he doesn't want to fight Crawford. Now, I don't blame Crawford for saying to himself, hey, the hell with Spence. He doesn't really want to fight. Okay, I'll just move on and, keep doing what I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, Terrence Crawford has achieved much more than Errol Spence has achieved as a boxer in the boxing game, and that's why he's the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world, and Spence is not. So I think we're gonna leave it there for right now. That's all I have. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out. What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic: Errol Spence on the run again. Demands 60-40 split in new attempt at ducking Bud Crawford. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the mind of a man, it's petty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing today. Okay, so new headline, Errol Spence demands 60-40 split to take the fight with Bud Crawford. Well, I can't say that I'm surprised that Errol Spence is demanding a 60-40 split, because in actuality, it's just a new way, at ducking. Okay, so I mean, one thing I gotta say about Errol Spence is that besides being a great fighter, he's very creative when it comes to ducking. Okay, I mean, I've never seen a fighter. I thought that Keith Thurman was one of the most prolific duckers in the game, but I mean, Errol Spence is putting Keith Thurman to shame when it comes to ducking, Bud Crawford. I mean, man, this guy, nothing but excuse after excuse after excuse. Now he's putting up a 60-40 split as a new way of ducking Crawford. Before Crawford didn't fight anybody. Before that, it was Crawford wouldn't sell. Before that, he sent his trainer, Derek James, out to say that his legacy doesn't depend on him fighting Crawford. I mean, now he has his fanboys, his LDBC fanboys out there, talking about 60-40, is good because Spence is is the biggest star. I mean, what is this, acting? I thought it was a boxing game. Isn't it about who's the better fighter? How did it become about who's the biggest star? I mean, what is that all about? I mean, this is a joke. At the end of the day, I mean, let's get serious, for a minute here, okay? Let's look at the record. We got to go to the record. And so let's look at the record. Crawford is a 3-division champion. Lightweight, super lightweight, which is junior welterweight, and welterweight. He's undisputed at junior lightweight. Junior welterweight. Okay? So you have a fighter who has actually cleaned out the division already. Okay? We're talking about a fighter who, if you were to stop fighting today, would be in the Hall of Fame. It would still go to the Hall of Fame. Do you think that if Spence stopped fighting today, he would go to the Hall of Fame? No, because he hasn't done anything yet to say he would go to the Hall of Fame. I mean, beating lightweight Mikey Garcia and having what you'd call a struggling against Sean Porter, that wouldn't put you in the Hall of Fame. Nowhere close. So the fact that Spence, could come out and say that he wants a 60-40, maybe he means 60-40 in favor of Crawford, because that's the way it should be. Okay, I mean, if you really want to get real about it, I mean, the 60-40 should be 60 for Crawford and 40 for Spence, because if you look at their record, it's not even close. Okay, what has Errol Spence achieved at welterweight? Have you ever fought in another division? No. And you're gonna look at a 3-division champion, and let's get clear about these 3 different divisions. He jumped from lightweight to welterweight to junior welterweight to fight Brady Prescott, who was a killer at the time. Okay, at 140 pounds, he moved up to fight Brady Prescott on 3 days' notice in his first 10-round fight. Think about that for a minute, okay? Crawford it was a 3 days notice. He moved up to fight Brady Prescott in his first 10-round fight, okay? A killer like Brady Prescott, who was supposed to fight another champion, who was supposed to fight for the title actually, but the guy that had the title at the time, something happened to him, and so he couldn't fight. And they asked Crawford if he wanted to take the fight. He said, "Yeah, I'll take it." 3 days notice, moved up 140 pounds and took that fight. Okay, so I mean, now typically when someone move up to a different weight division, they usually take a trial fight or 2 or 3 to get themselves acclimated to the weight. But he just jumped up to 140 pounds and took the fight. And let's not forget that once he moved up to 140 pounds, he cleaned out the entire division, undisputed. Then after that, he moved up to welterweight and knocked out the champion at welterweight. No preliminary fights, no fight to get acclimated to the weight. He just moved up to the championship level, took the title. Okay, so I mean, and then we could compare that against what Spence has done. I mean, Spence fought lightweight Mikey Garcia, couldn't stop him. Then he went, into a fight against against Sean Porter, struggled with Sean Porter. I mean, there's many who would say that Sean Porter won that fight. So maybe there's something wrong with me, because I just don't see how you could compare Terrence Crawford's record with Errol Spence's record. I mean, it's not even close. And I hear people out there talking about Crawford hasn't fought anybody here, this, that, and the other. And, our Errol Spence is the biggest star, this, that, and the other. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, these guys are trying to flip the script, okay? And, it's ridiculous at this point, okay? So now, after the book fight, we see that, I guess Errol Spence is like, whoa, I mean, hey, I got to figure out another way to try and duck this fight. Maybe if I demand a 60-40 split, Bud won't take the fight. And so we see that this is just another attempt by Errol Spence to duck Terrence Crawford by any means necessary. Okay, it doesn't matter what he does. He's gonna do anything and everything to avoid fighting Terrence Crawford, and this is just another example of that. I mean, if people can't see see the fact now, I mean, I don't know when they're gonna see it. Okay, this guy has been ducking Crawford for 2 years continuously. You know, first he said when Crawford ran up on him, he said, "Oh, why didn't I take the easy fight against Sean Porter?" And I mean, and we saw what happened with that fight. Okay, that was the toughest fight of his life. So I mean, it looks like Errol Spence really don't want this fight at all. I mean, I mean, what else can we? What other conclusion can we come to? Okay, because to say that you're the biggest star, as if this was an acting gig or something like that. This is about fighting. It's not about acting. Okay. So all this talk about being the biggest star, I don't know where that's coming from. I've heard that from some other boxers, well, not, boxers, but, guys in the business talking about so-and-so fighter is the biggest star, this, that, and the other. I mean, let's get real, people. If we're going to talk about stars in the boxing, how can the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, the lineal champion, 3-division, undisputed guy not be the biggest star than a guy who fought a lightweight and went the distance with a lightweight, fought Sean Porter, okay, went the distance with Sean Porter and barely won the fight against Sean Porter, while the other fighter like Terrence Crawford is stopping everybody he fights. Okay, no judges involved, he's stopping everyone. So I mean, we see that this is ridiculous. But at this point, this is ridiculous, and I think that Errol Spence is almost making himself irrelevant at this point. With his prima donna demands. I mean, if you don't want to fight Terrence Crawford, just say you don't want to take the fight because you don't think he gonna win, or just say make up some other reason. I mean, but don't try to say, oh, you want a 60-40 because you're the A side. You can't be the A side when you don't have a record that could match Terrence Crawford's record. You haven't done anything at welterweight yet, to say that, oh, you're the biggest star. I mean, just because you got all these fanboys out there, trying to protect you, okay, and out there, saying that, oh, Errol Spence is this and Errol Spence is that. I mean, I don't know what they're basing it on, because it can't be his record, okay? I mean, he fought, you talk about, people talk about, oh, Crawford is fighting Errol Spence leftover. Well, I mean, the guy that he beat, Kell Brook, shout out to Kell Brook. The guy that he beat, Kell Brook, beat Sean Porter, while Sean Porter was undefeated. So Errol Spence fought Kell Brook's leftover. Okay, that's what it's all about. And he fought Sean Porter, after Sean Porter lost to Keith Thurman and Kell Brook. Okay, so so when he fought Sean Porter, when Errol Spence fought Sean Porter, he had 2 losses on his record already. When Kell Brook fought Sean Porter, he was undefeated. Okay, he fought the best Sean Porter. So I mean, people, we got to get real about this thing. I mean, and really see for what it is. So it looks like running man Errol Spence, is really, I mean, I don't know what to tell you about this. I mean, he's not making any sense whatsoever. Okay, so we can see. I mean, we gotta. This is why I keep saying, we can't be afford to be politically correct in this situation, because it looks like we're gonna have to drag Errol Spence into the ring against Crawford. It's not the fight. Well, I keep saying this. Okay, now you can go back and look at all my videos. Okay, it's the same thing over and over. I'm telling people all the time, Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford, and this is just another example of that. It's a blatant example, of ducking. Okay, and so Errol Spence, ironically, is even outdoing Keith Thurman when it comes to ducking. Okay, so I mean, it is what it is, people. I mean, I think a lot of people are starting to realize the fact now. Okay, because as you can see, a lot of people after the Kell Brook fight with Terrence Crawford is saying, oh, they want to see everybody's out there saying now they want to see the fight with Spence and Crawford. They want to see the fight with Spence and Crawford. Even some of Errol Spence fans are demanding now to see the fight, with Crawford. Even some of the LDBC haters and fanboys are out there saying now, yeah, they want to see the fight with Errol Spence. This fight gotta happen next. The fight gotta happen next. Okay, I mean, you have some of them out there still talking about, Sean Porter couldn't upset. I hear one of these LDBC haters talk about, Sean Porter could upset the whole thing. The whole thing with the Spence fight if he was to take a fight with Crawford. But I mean, I don't know about that. I think that Sean Porter would be wise to stay away from Crawford because I think Crawford will stop him. Okay, I mean, it's Sean Porter who's out there saying that Crawford has more tools, too many tools for Errol Spence, and that Sean Porter Bud Crawford would beat Errol Spence. This is what Sean Porter is saying. Now you just lost to Errol Spence, Sean Porter. So if you think that Bud Crawford would beat Errol Spence, what do you think he would do to you? I mean, now we can say, I respect Sean Porter, so we can say that styles make fights. So just because Crawford can beat Errol Spence, this is what I would think. Just because he can beat Errol Spence doesn't mean he necessarily could beat Porter, but I think he could beat both Porter and Errol Spence. Okay, so that's how I see that. But I think that at the end of the day, Sean Porter is a fighter, and so even though he might not think he'll win the fight, he probably still take the fight anyway. Plus, it's going to be a big money fight if he fights Crawford. Okay, but I don't want to see that fight right now. I want to see the Errol Spence fight first. If they're going to fight, they can fight after Errol Spence. Okay, I want to see the Errol Spence fight first. That's the biggest fight in boxing. Okay, Sean Porter doesn't have a title. Okay, so I don't even see what the point of Crawford fighting. Why should Crawford fight Sean Porter? He doesn't have a title. Okay, I mean, what happened to strap season? I mean, that's what Errol Spence was always talking about. You don't hear him talking about that anymore. Strap season disappeared from his mind. All of a sudden now he wants to fight everybody else that doesn't have a title. When Crawford is sitting over there with a title and he's claiming that Crawford is not fighting anybody. So if Crawford is not fighting anybody, then go over there and take the title from Crawford. Since you're supposed to be the boogeyman, go over there and take the title from Crawford. But how is it that you're the boogeyman and Crawford is calling you out and you've been ducking him for 2 years, but you're the boogeyman? I didn't know that the boogeyman was, boogeymen duck fighters. I mean, I thought fighters duck boogeymen. Okay, but no, the whole thing is flipped upside down. Spence is claiming to be the boogeyman, but yet still Crawford has been calling him out for 2 years and he's been ducking Crawford. So I mean, this whole thing is getting ridiculous now. But it looks like Errol Spence is getting backed into a corner. So now he comes up with a new way to try and duck Crawford. He wants 60-40 split now. He never mentioned that before, but this is some new demand now when people are putting the pressure on him, to fight Crawford. He's coming up with a new demand to put in the way of the fight. So, people, we see it for what it is. And I don't think it can be any doubt, even with the most die-hard Spence fan, that Errol Spence is ducking Crawford. It is what it is, people. You can't, it can't be denied anymore. Okay? I mean, this is what is going on. I mean, it's a desperate attempt, to duck Crawford. But I don't think it's going to work because people, if, we already know how, fans, are, fans are fickle. Okay, and they're with you one day, they're against you the next day. Okay, so I think we're turning that corner. People are now demanding this fight. Okay, and Errol Spence, is gonna have to fight Crawford. I would think because people are demanding, and it looks like the fans are literally, I've said this in my videos before, but it looks like it's really happening. The fans are actually literally having to drag Spence inch by inch into the ring with Crawford because he's not going to go in there voluntarily. Okay, we can see that now after 2 years, and then especially after that book fight, we're gonna have to drag him in the ring, and so let the dragon begin, as I've said before. Okay, and it looked like the dragon has begun. And so Spence is, desperately trying to stop himself from getting dragged into the ring. So now he comes up with this 60-40 split out of nowhere. Okay? That has no merit whatsoever because your record, I mean, Crawford is the one that's the pound for pound number 1 fighter, not Errol Spence. So how is it that the pound for pound number 1 fighter is going to get a 40, get a 60-40 split in Errol Spence's favor? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, how can you be the A side when you're not the pound for pound fighter and you only fought 2 fighters in your whole career that we can say, is elite? I'd say, I don't know, lightweight Mikey Garcia. I mean, come on, people. It's getting ridiculous by now, okay? I mean, at the end of the day, this is why, it looks like, Crawford is kind of fed up with Errol Spence and his ducking, because it's getting ridiculous, okay? And, that's why he's demanding a fight with Manny Pacquiao as opposed to demanding a fight with Errol Spence, okay? Because from what I've heard, I just heard that Manny Pacquiao is willing to fight Crawford anytime, any place. I mean, that's what I saw somewhere. He says, I'm willing to fight Crawford anytime, any place. So even old man Pacquiao, is willing to fight Crawford while Errol Spence continues to make excuses. It's not a good look for Errol Spence at all. Okay. I mean, Errol Spence is a good fighter. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from Errol Spence. He's a good fighter. But the fact of the matter is, his record, he doesn't have the record to go out there and demand 60-40 split with Terrence Crawford. It's just not there. I'm sorry. He has no leg to stand on. Okay, all this talk about him being the star is just, a joke. I mean, like I said, if you compare the record, it's not even close. I mean. Again, I'm going to tell you that Terrence Crawford could stop fighting today and still be in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because he cleaned out the 140-pound division. He's a 3 division world champion. Okay, and so he has the record, to be in the Hall of Fame right now. If Errol Spence was to quit boxing today, he could never be in the Hall of Fame with his record that he has. Because he doesn't have a record yet. Okay. So, a fight against lightweight Mikey Garcia and a struggling win against Sean Porter is not going to put you in the Hall of Fame. That's not a record where you're going to demand a 60-40 split, okay? Because we saw, that Book fought Sean Porter and beat Sean Porter. He beat the best Sean Porter. He beat an undefeated Sean Porter, okay? Errol Spence fought Sean Porter after Sean Porter already had 2 losses on his record, okay? And he struggled, okay? So, and then even after that fight, we saw Sean Porter struggle before that fight, Sean Porter struggled with Ugas, okay? After the fight with Spence, Sean Porter struggled with Formelo, okay? So why did Spence have such a tough fight with Sean Porter? If he's that good, if Spence is that good, how is it that the fight with Sean Porter was so tough? When even Keith Thurman, even sometime Keith Thurman had an easier fight against Sean Porter than Errol Spence did. So, something is just not kosher there, people. I'm sorry to say, Errol Spence, need to come back down to earth and realize, that it's not all about him, okay? And that he hasn't really done anything in the game to demand a 60-40 split, and people see it for what it is, okay? He can think that he's pulling the wool away in anybody's eyes, but he's not. It's just a shameless attempt at ducking Terrence Crawford because, again, the people are now demanding the fight, so now he's putting up more roadblocks, for this fight, and people are seeing it for what it is. And so I don't think that it's going to work personally, okay? And, he's going to have to either go get in that ring and fight Terrence Crawford, or just get a pin that says duck and pin it to his jacket, because he's gonna be known as the guy that ducked Terrence Crawford, and that's what it's gonna be. There's no other way that people are gonna see it other than that, and a lot of people are seeing it now. I see a lot of people waking up to the fact that you know, he's ducking Crawford, and you know, especially after the Kell Brook fight. Okay, so it is what it is. You know, Errol Spence, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. You know, I'm kind of sad to see that, you know, it has gotten to this point with Errol Spence, you know, in terms of the duck season, you know, situation. You know, I would have never expected, you know, for this type of thing, to be associated with Errol Spence. Okay, you know, him ducking, you know, this blatant attempt at ducking. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I mean, it is, you know, it is what it is. It's an embarrassing situation. Okay, and you know, it doesn't look good for Errol Spence at all. So you know, but again, you know, people, I mean, even though, you know, I'm gonna say I've said what I've said, you know, in a way I kind of understand, because, you know, after that, you know, devastating win by Crawford against Book, a guy that Errol Spence struggled with, I mean, yeah, you know, I can understand. I mean, why would you want to go in the ring with against a beast like Crawford? I mean, you know, so maybe, you know, the 60-40 split is just, you know, retirement insurance. Maybe that extra 20%, you know, is going to go towards retirement, because if you were to fight Crawford, I think Crawford would probably retire him. You know, I mean, Porter almost did it, because I mean, quiet as kept, that fight against Porter was a brutal fight for Errol Spence. He got really beat up in the fight. Now, people are talking about, you know, the crash. I wouldn't really worry about the crash so much. I think people should go back and revisit that fight with Sean Porter and see how much punishment Errol Spence took. I mean, I you know, even without the crash, you know, I was kind of wondering if he'd ever be the same after that fight. I mean, I think that fight took a lot out of him. Okay, and so maybe he doesn't want to go in again another tough fight against a beast like Terrence Crawford, because I mean, if Porter did that to him, imagine what Crawford would do. I mean, you know, I think, you know, I think he would stop Errol Spence, actually. Okay, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Errol Spence. He's a good fighter, but I just don't, just like Sean Porter says, I just think that Crawford have more tools in the toolbox. Okay, and that, you know, he's a more versatile fighter than Errol Spence. As a matter of fact, he's probably the most versatile fighter. Not probably, he is the most versatile fighter at welterweight. Okay, and so, you know, I can see Crawford. You know, if he was to get the chance, I could see Crawford cleaning out the 147-pound division. I can see that. Okay, and then moving up to junior middleweight and, you know, cleaning out that division as well. Because if you move up to junior middleweight, you don't have to make two fights, one against Jamel Charlo and against the WBO champion. And the WBO champion would have to fight him, because he's a WBO champion himself. So all he would need to clean out the junior middleweight and the welterweight division is 4 fights. Manny Pacquiao, Errol Spence, Jamel Charlo, and Teixeira. Okay, so that's 4 fights, and he'll be undisputed in 3 different weight divisions. So I wish I could say that, you know, I'm surprised, you know, that Errol Spence is now asking for a 60-40 split. But I mean, you know, it doesn't surprise me. I think that he doesn't really want this fight with Crawford, and, you know, this whole talk about 60-40 is just more proof of that fact. So it is what it is, people. The fear is real. Errol Spence doesn't want any smoke. He's forgot about strap season. He don't even say that anymore. You don't hear him say that anymore, because if he was to say that, then people would say, what about this strap that Terrence Crawford has? So he doesn't even mention strap season anymore. Okay, man down, no more. Okay, all of that is out the window now. Okay, you know, he's, you know, basically doing everything in his power to avoid Terrence Crawford, and, you know, talking about fighting Porter next, and Porter, you know, Porter is calling out Crawford now. And, you know, let's talk about that call out. I mean, Porter calling out Crawford, I don't think is a wise move. You know, I think that, you know, just like he's saying that Crawford has more tools in the toolbox, you know, in a fight against Errol Spence. It's the same thing with him, with Porter and Crawford. I mean, it would be the same thing. But the only difference I think is that I do believe though that the fight with Crawford and Porter would probably be more competitive than a fight with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, because the style make fights, okay? And I just think that Errol Spence fight, our style would play to Terrence Crawford, and because he's a come forward type of guy, and Crawford would probably do him the same way he did Book, okay? Take him out, okay? I've seen that Porter it can be versatile when he wants to be. So is Errol Spence actually, but I just think that his whole persona and the way he fights is more would be advantageous for Crawford. Okay, if he decide to fight the way he usually fight, come forward against Crawford, I don't think that would work in his favor. So I'm thinking that a fight with Porter would probably be more entertaining in the sense that Porter would probably last a little bit longer than Errol Spence was, just because of the style. Okay, different style, so style make fights. And so Porter, I'm not sure why he wants to fight Crawford, but then again, Porter is a fighter. Okay, he's a warrior, and so he probably want to test himself against Crawford, even though he think he might not, he might not win. That's not going to stop him from testing the waters. And unlike Spence, he's willing to go out there and lay down the line. We see that Spence, is not willing to do that. Okay, he doesn't want any part of Crawford, and I think he's really worried about Crawford stopping him, and that would be the end of the line, in terms of him being the so-called star at 147 pounds. Okay, we all see who the real star at 147 pounds is, and it's Terrence Crawford. Okay, at this point, we'll have to call Errol Spence a pretender. Okay, because again, his record does not reflect reality. In what he's claiming his status is at 147 pounds. I mean, again, I'm going to point out to people that don't really understand. Errol Spence has fought Mikey Garcia and Sean Porter. What distance with both guys struggled with Porter. Okay, couldn't knock out Mikey Garcia, and on the contrary, Crawford has stopped every fighter he has fought at welterweight, as well as most of the fighters he fought at 140 pounds. Okay, and so it's no contest, people. Okay, the real boogeyman is Terrence Crawford, and I think everybody realizes it now, especially after the Book fight. Okay, and so it is what it is. Errol Spence, couldn't say what he want to say. He can continue to make excuses, continue to duck. But again, if he doesn't get in there with Crawford sooner, I think he's gonna lose a lot of his fans to Crawford. I think a lot of his fans right now are seeing the light. Okay, they realize what's going on after that fight with Book and Crawford, and they see that the real boogeyman at 147 pounds, is Terrence Crawford, and that's what it is. Okay, Errol Spence is gonna have to prove himself. Okay, and this talk about 60-40 split is just again another blatant attempt by Errol Spence at ducking Terrence Crawford. It is what it is, people. We can't deny it any longer. So I think I'm going to leave it there. There's not much else to say about that, okay? Except for the fact that, a fight with Porter would be great, but I want to see that fight after Errol Spence fight. And it looks like, with the latest news that, Errol Spence has came out with about this 60-40 split, we're going to have to really drag him in there, against Crawford, because he's not going to go in there willingly. Okay, it's not going to happen, people, and we're seeing it live in real time. It is what it is. So this is TBE Boxing. That's all I have for right now. I'm out. What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic: boxing commentators ESPN's Tim Bradley and Andre Ward exposed the fact that Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford. Let's chop it up. and see what it's all about.
Got the mind of a menace, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glitzy, run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. We have a lot to chop up today. So, as you all know, for the past 3 years, and I've been talking about this in, a lot of my videos, Errol Spence has been ducking Terrence Crawford by using various excuses, one after the other, him and his coach, Derek James, basically. And, most of the LDBC fanboys, especially Tweedledee and Tweedledum are Phantom Boxing and Blue Blood Sports. So these guys have been running all kind of narratives, trying to basically cover up the fact that Errol Spence has been ducking Crawford. And so they have, been running, various narratives, making excuses for Errol Spence. They go around calling CARNE-LO and other fighters ducks. They say Canelo is ducking Charlo, but they never will ever say that Errol Spence is ducking Crawford. But they have no problem saying that Anthony Joshua is ducking Deontay Wilder, or Fury is ducking Deontay Wilder, but they'll never say Errol Spence is ducking Crawford. Okay, they'll never say that because Errol Spence is basically in their protection program. So, they make all kind of excuses for Errol Spence, and then they go so far as to basically try to get people to accept the fact that Errol Spence should never fight Terrence Crawford. This is what I did a video recently about that as well, where we saw Phantom from Phantom Boxing was on the air live on his channel crying, literally shedding tears about the fact that trying to make up reasons why Errol Spence should not fight Terrence Crawford. So recently, now at this point it's getting so blatant the way Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford that people are beginning to pay attention. People are beginning to say, well, hey, the emperor has no clothes. I mean, what's going on here? Because we saw Errol Spence when he had to fight with Danny Garcia. We saw him, we saw that Terrence Crawford showed up at the fight, and it was like, Errol Spence took it as an insult, basically. He was basically saying he doesn't know why Crawford is showing up at his fight, that he wouldn't show up at Crawford's fight, okay? And that he just want to go back to his ranch and whatever and play with his horses and his ducks or whatever he has on his ranch. So this is basically what's been going on. So a lot of people saw that and they took that like, whoa, I mean, hey, this is going to be. What do you mean you don't know why he's coming to your fight? He's coming to your fight because he wants to fight you. Okay, so even some of Errol Spence's own fans was kind of surprised that Errol Spence would say something like that, because the tradition of a fighter showing up at your fight, especially a fighter who wants to fight you, is a long tradition in boxing and been going on from basically almost since the inception of boxing. Especially with Muhammad Ali when he used to do all those antics when he wanted to fight Sonny Liston. So this is something that's been going on in boxing for a long time. It's a tradition. But here it is that Errol Spence is basically saying he doesn't know why Terrence Crawford is showing up at his fights. So after that, a lot of people started questioning, well, does Errol Spence really want this fight with Crawford or not? So another thing that Errol Spence began doing now when, people ask him about Crawford, because now it looks like ever since, Crawford knocked out Kell Brook, shout out to Kell Brook, people have been, kind of getting more, the anticipation for the Errol Spence Crawford fight, has been, has risen to the stratosphere. I mean, people want to see that fight. So every time Errol Spence goes anywhere or appears on any program, people asking me, when are you going to fight Terrence Crawford? And so one of the one of the other tricks now that Errol Spence is using in his attempt to duck that conversation, is that he can move up and fight Canelo Alvarez. So now with that, once he said that, once he started floating that out there, that narrative out there, a lot of these LDBC fanboys took that and ran with it and talked about how Errol Spence is calling out Canelo, and that's going to be the biggest fight in boxing. But that never really happened. Errol Spence never called out Canelo. He just floated the idea that he could move up and fight Canelo. He never said to Canelo, "Hey, Canelo, I want to fight you." Okay? He never called out Canelo. Never. But a lot of these fanboys out there, especially Blue Blood Sports and Fan and Boxing, they're running with that narrative, about the biggest fight in boxing and this, that, and the other. And, again, while they're at the same time, because they're calling Canelo a duck for not fighting Errol Spence when Errol Spence haven't actually called out Canelo. So you see how ridiculous it gets, okay? But this is what these guys are, this is the kind of narrative that these guys are spinning out there. So we're going to do a little scenario here. I'm going to play some clips so you can see what's really going on. And, we're going to start out with this clip where the last time, as a matter of fact, the last time Canelo fought, Errol Spence showed up at his fight, okay? This is immediately after Crawford showed up at his fight, okay? And then he said he didn't understand why Crawford showed up at his fight, okay? But here he is, he's showing up at Canelo's fight, and then he's out, he's talking about he can move when they asked him about Crawford, which they inevitably do when he appears in public. Crawford's name follows him wherever he goes. So when he was asked about Crawford, he shifted the conversation to talking about he could move up and fight Canelo. Okay, and he's at Canelo's fight saying this. Now he didn't go into the ring, at the fight. He didn't call out Canelo. He just said I can move up and fight Canelo, and then he laughed. Okay, but so we're gonna play that clip and one or two more clips, and then we're gonna go ahead and talk about what Andre Ward and Tim Bradley said about Errol Spence ducking Terrence Crawford. So let's start with this clip right here. Let's check this out.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights, and you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terrence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford?
I mean, that could happen. We got to see how it go. But, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez.
Congratulations. Back here, way back, you have Zimmerman Fight News. Did you see Errol Spence tonight at the fight? And what about fighting him back at Cowboy Stadium in Dallas next year?
Sí, lo vi. La verdad que, pues obviamente, agradecido de que estén aquí. Pues ahorita tenemos otras metas, ¿no? Tenemos otras metas a corto plazo, que es ganar los títulos en las 168 libras y pues más adelante veremos.
Yes, I did saw him. I'm very grateful that he was here, but reality is that we have other goals right now. We have the goals of the 168-pound titles.
Okay, so you see, they asked him about Crawford. He starts talking about Canelo, okay, that he could move up. He didn't say I want to move up and fight Canelo. He didn't say I'm going to move up and fight Canelo. He didn't call out Canelo. He just basically used Canelo's name to avoid talking about Crawford. And he said, oh, I can move up and fight Canelo at 160. But we saw what Canelo did, when they asked him about fighting Errol Spence. He basically dismissed it and said that, he has bigger fish to fry, at 168. And, by definition, I think he probably just say, even though he didn't come out and say that, he probably saying, Errol Spence got his own business at 147, you should go handle that. Okay, so basically he was summarily dismissed by Canelo, and it made him look it made him look ridiculous, because here he is at Canelo's fight just after recently saying he doesn't know why Crawford is coming to his fight. Okay, he's at Canelo's fight. He didn't call out Canelo. Okay, I mean, so what is he doing there? What is he doing at Canelo's fight if he's not going to call out Canelo? So he's at Canelo's fight. He didn't call out Canelo, and they asked him about Crawford, and he started talking about Canelo. So we see that that's just an attempt Okay, it's a stunt. It was a stunt that he pulled basically to try and dampen or get rid of the conversation about him fighting Crawford. I mean, it's a duck move, okay? And it was exposed by Canelo because Canelo just basically dismissed that because there's no conversation with the Canelo camp about him fighting Errol Spence. There is none, and there never was, okay? I mean, so it is what it is. So let's watch another video clip. Check this out.
Is the Spence you fought last September at Staples, would that guy beat Crawford, or from what you know?
That guy was very good.
Mm-hmm.
He was good to the point where the last round, we came in, we touched gloves. Normally it just touch gloves and you fight, but I touched gloves with him and I said, good shit, boy, because the work was that good and the night was that good and that competitive, and I wanted it, and I could tell that he wanted it too. Does that fighter beat Terrence Crawford? That fighter was strong. That fighter was very good. I saw some holes. I saw that I was a step ahead of him a majority of that fight. And with saying that, no, I don't think that fighter can beat Terrence Crawford. But I've already said that in a match, I don't think Errol Spence could beat Terrence Crawford. I think that Terrence wins that fight. I think he's got more in his arsenal.
So there it is. That's Sean Porter, for those of you that don't know. Basically saying that, and he fought Errol Spence, and I think he probably he knows Terrence Crawford very well. As a matter of fact, they're very good friends. And he's basically saying he doesn't think that Errol Spence can beat Terrence Crawford. I mean, that's what, he's a professional boxer. Okay, he has fought Errol Spence. So if anybody should know, he should know. Okay, so these are the type of things that a lot of people in the boxing world actually know. Now most of the casual fans don't know anything about these type of things, and they just go by these narratives that these people like Fannin and Blue Blood Sports out there spinning, and they believe whatever these guys say. But now we have professional boxers like Sean Porter, and most of the boxing community believe that pound for pound king Terrence Crawford can beat Errol Spence, and that's why he's been ducking Crawford for the past 3 years. And I guess in a way you can't really blame him. I mean, why run into a fight with a guy is going to beat you, or that you think can beat you? I mean, we don't know how the fight would play out. Actually, the fight has to happen for us to see what what that is, and that's why people want to see this fight, because they want to see if Terrence Crawford can actually beat Errol Spence. But again, Errol Spence doesn't seem to want to take the challenge. He doesn't seem to want to challenge himself. He's making all kind of reasons why the fight shouldn't happen, and him and his coach Derek James has been ducking Crawford for the past 3 years. But now it looks like we have reached a sort of a watershed. Now everybody is jumping on the bandwagon in terms of wanting to see this fight and basically calling out Errol Spence for his ducking moves. And so we see the latest in that scenario is Tim Bradley and Andre Ward. Okay, and the color commentary team on ESPN. Okay, Tim Bradley, Krieger, and Andre Ward. So let's play that video clip right now and see what he's actually said, which has what Tim Bradley actually said, and which has made Blue Blood Sports and Fan Boxing become they basically got their panties in a bunch right now about what he said, and they're out there doing overtime and spinning their narratives about what Tim Bradley said, and trying to basically belittle what Tim Bradley is saying. But the problem with that is that although Fan Boxing and Blue Blood Sport have a pretty big platform in terms of their YouTube channel, Tim Bradley has the biggest platform. Him and Andre Ward, they're on ESPN, and so their comments and their views go out to millions of people, not a couple thousand or tens of thousands or whatever, but millions. So on their platform, they're basically co-signing what I've been saying and what a few other people have been saying. Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford, and so it is what it is. And so here, I'm going to play the clip for you. Give me 1 second. Let me set it up for you. Here it goes. Okay. I mean, you know, it's the biggest fight in boxing, actually. So there it is. So this is what Tim Bradley said that has Blue Blood Sports and Phantom Boxing panties in a bunch. He basically told the truth, okay, that, you know, I've known for a while now, and that most people are starting to realize that Errol Spence don't want to fight Terrence Crawford, okay? I mean, you know, it's the biggest fight in boxing, actually, at this point in time, at your own weight, okay? Yet you're talking about moving up and fighting Canelo. And you're not even calling out Canelo. It's just a talking point that you're doing. You're not really, you know, you're not really serious about actually, you know, calling out Canelo Alvarez. Now people can say, you know, people talk about, oh well, when Kell Brook moved up and fought Golovkin, nobody said anything about it, you know. But now they're talking about it's not going to happen for Errol Spence and Canelo. Well, that's because Kell Brook didn't talk about fighting Golovkin. He actually moved up. He actually called out Golovkin. He didn't say he could move up and fight Golovkin. He actually called Golovkin out, moved up, and fought Golovkin. Okay, that's the difference. So, I mean, if I thought Errol Spence was serious about fighting Canelo, I would say, oh, I'll be all for it. But I don't see that. I see that he's just using Canelo's name in a cloud-chasing move to avoid fighting Terrence Crawford, okay? And so it is what it is. And so we got to tell it like it is. And, you know, this is what's really going on. So, again, I don't believe Errol Spence want any part of Terrence Crawford, okay? I think that Errol Spence, again, is just using, you know, he has been using all kind, but he's been ducking Terrence Crawford by any means necessary, any means at his disposal, you know, including trying to cloud chase Canelo's name and use Canelo as a way to duck Terrence Crawford. And we saw what Canelo did, you know, by, you know, basically dismissing the whole idea. And so, you know, he basically, I mean, probably just basically saying, stop using my name, you know, to avoid Terrence Crawford, man. Just, you know, do what you have to do. I'm going to do what I have to do up here at 168 pounds. I want to unify, which is what Errol Spence is supposed to be doing at 147. You know, when he first came into the game, Errol Spence was all about strap season. He wanted to collect all the belts. But now that he has 2 belts, okay, and his next fight has to be Terrence Crawford or Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao looked like he's getting ready to go and fight McGregor or somebody next, an exhibition fight. He doesn't have any interest in fighting Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford, it doesn't seem like. You know, which I think he, you know, Manny Pacquiao should be stripped of the belt if he doesn't fight either guy. But that, you know, right now, you know, since Errol Spence tried the cloud chase move against Canelo and Canelo dismissed him, so, you know, making him look so bad, what does Errol Spence do now? What's his next move? Who is he going to fight next? You know, I'm going to do a separate video about that. But yeah, so Tim Bradley, you know, using the platform ESPN is basically, you know, exposed Errol Spence. Him and Andre Ward is basically exposed Errol Spence what he's been doing. You know, people, the fight fans out there want to see the fight between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. And Errol Spence has been doing everything, and his team, and these guys like Phantom Boxing and some of these LDBC guys, you know, have been, you know, trying not to make that fight happen. I mean, you know, I even heard some of these guys out there talking about, oh, when Errol Spence went to, when he went to the Canelo fight, it was a beautiful move. It was a chess move that he did. Oh, yeah, a chess move. It backfired in his face. Okay, Canelo, you know, because as I said, he never actually called out Canelo, and we saw that. Okay, he just went there as a way to stop the conversation about Terrence Crawford, and we saw what happened. You know, he went there and he was asked about Terrence Crawford, so that didn't help him at all. Okay, going to Canelo fight didn't help him. He had to actually answer questions about Terrence Crawford. Okay, and you saw what he said, that he could move up and fight Canelo. He never called out Canelo. He didn't go in the ring with Canelo with and say, I want to fight you. Okay, he's just, you know, there, you know, trying to pull a publicity stunt, and it backfired in his face. So now he's not getting the Canelo fight because there was never any fight to get in the first place. It doesn't look like the Manny Pacquiao fight is going to happen because Manny Pacquiao is talking about fighting Conor McGregor in a exhibition, and he probably, if he's forced to, probably fight Mikey Garcia. So what's next for Errol Spence? What's his move? You know, now that he's been checkmated in his chess move, what is he gonna do now? Who does he fight next? Okay, I mean, who else is left? Well, Sean Porter is mandatory. Okay, and so that fight is, you know, might happen, could happen, because Porter's been talking about fighting, you know, activating that mandatory. But Porter's also the mandatory for Crawford, and you know he is talking about that fight, but he hasn't activated that mandatory yet either. So I guess he's trying to make up his mind. But at the end of the day, you know, Errol Spence, Crawford told Porter that, you know, if you want to fight me, then go ahead and activate the mandatory, and I'm going to stop you. As a matter of fact, he said he dares Porter to activate the mandatory. So, but yeah, up to now, Porter hasn't done that. But yet still, you have people out there saying that Crawford is ducking Porter. I mean, these people out there are ridiculous. I mean, these people are some of these people are so as dumb as rocks. I mean, they really know nothing about boxing. When there's a mandatory, you know, as a matter of fact, this guy, Fannin guy, you know, I mean, this guy's a real hater, okay? He's out there saying that Errol Spence, saying that Crawford is trying to get Errol Spence, he's saying that Crawford is complaining about what Errol Spence offered him, when Errol Spence said that, you know, Crawford should take 60-40, 70-30, or whatever he decides to give him. That's what he said, okay, about the fight with Crawford, okay? And so you have Fannin Boxing out there talking about, Crawford is complaining about what Errol Spence said, but he's trying to get Porter to take 75-25 in their fight. Now, you know, I mean, that's an outright lie, okay? That's not the truth at all. At the end of the day, Crawford, you know, is a champ, okay? Porter is his mandatory. And as a mandatory, it doesn't matter who the champ or the WBO, it doesn't matter who the champ is or who the mandatory is. There's a standard for mandatory challenges, and that's, you know, 75-25. That's not what Crawford is asking for. That's the standard, okay? That's what it is. That's the rules of boxing. When a guy moves up to become a mandatory, to whichever champion he's a mandatory for, they have a standard percentage that he gets to fight the champion, okay? And so I believe that it's 75-25. So it's not Crawford trying to impose a 75-25 split on Sean Porter. That's what the standard is. No, you know, it's been that way ever since, you know, from the beginning of boxing, basically. From the beginning of those, from the beginning of the mandatory. So to say that, you know, Crawford is trying to get Porter to take a 75-25 split, you know, is a total lie. Okay, but this is the kind of thing that these guys resort to in their lies about Terrence Crawford. Okay, now I mean, the fact of the matter is, for the fight to even happen, Sean Porter has to activate the mandatory. Once the mandatory is activated, him and Crawford can sit down and they can work out whatever they want to work out in terms of making the fight actually happen. Okay. But once Sean Porter activates the mandatory, the fight has to happen. Crawford has to fight him, but I'll be stripped of the belt. Okay. And so Crawford has no control over that. Crawford can't make Porter activate the mandatory. He can only tell Porter, activate the mandatory if you want to fight me. Okay. And he had said that. He said, you know, it's not, he doesn't have a choice as to whether to fight Crawford. I mean, he does have a choice whether he can fight Porter or not once Porter activated the mandatory, but the only choice he has is to relinquish the belt. And that's not a choice for, I mean, we know he's not going to do that. So it's up to Sean Porter. The ball is in Sean Porter's court. He has to activate the mandatory for that fight to happen. They can negotiate the percentage if they want to. I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably will because they're friends. So, you know, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, Porter has to activate the mandatory. But you have these guys fanning boxing, you know, I mean, this guy really hates Crawford, and they really have Spence in a protection program because, you know, they don't want Blue Blood Sports and Phantom Boxing don't want Spence to fight Crawford. And the only reason we can think of why they don't want to fight, you know, which would be the biggest money-making fight for Spence and Crawford, okay? The only reason they don't want to see that fight because, you know, they believe that Crawford is going to beat Spence. And that's what it is. So, you know, they talk about they want to see the best fight the best. They want Crawford to fight. They say Crawford ain't fighting anybody. He needs to fight better fighters. He needs to fight better competition. So Crawford calls out the supposedly best at 147, but they don't want to see him fight Spence. Okay? They say they want him to fight Porter. But Spence just beat Porter. And you said that Crawford needs to fight better fighters and better competition. So what better competition for him to fight than Spence? But they don't want to see that fight. Crawford didn't fight nobody. I mean, the logic is ridiculous, okay? And so it is what it is. But yeah, these guys are real haters, man. You know, they really hating on Crawford. They, you know, they got this plantation mentality, okay? You know, Negro mentality where, you know, I mean, it's ridiculous at this point, you know? You know, these guys are going around making and running narratives and spinning all kind of foolishness about fighters and, you know, making boxing look like a laughing stock, basically, okay? And so, you know, I'm not the only one that says that, and I'm not the only one that knows that. You know, other people know that. But like I said, at this point, it looks like Errol Spence is running out of places to run and hide from Terrence Crawford, because now you have even major platforms like ESPN with Andre Ward and Tim Bradley basically saying the same thing I'm saying. Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford, and they need to stop, okay? They need to make that fight happen. But like I said before previously, it looks like, you know, we're going to have to drag Errol Spence into the ring against Terrence Crawford. That's what it looks like, okay? Because he's not going to go in there willingly, okay? And we see that, okay? And the good thing is that I'm not the only one that sees that. Now you have Tim Bradley, Andre Ward basically co-signing what I'm saying in terms of Errol Spence ducking Terrence Crawford, and it is what it is. So that's what I have to report for right now. That's all I have. I think I'm going to leave it there. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out. Guys, okay, I'm gonna pull it up now so that you can see it, so give me a second. All right, while I pull up this new video for you guys. As you can see, these, you know, it's a rebroadcast of previous videos that I've done, you know, about the Duck Chronicles. So I'm calling this the Duck Chronicles. Okay, you're seeing a series of videos about how Errol Spence has been ducking Terrence Crawford. You know, so bear with me for a minute here. Let me pull up the next video for you guys, and you can take a look at it. All right. Here's one right now that's coming up in a minute. So just hold on, and I'll pull it up for you guys. Okay. What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic: the last time I checked, Al Heyman was wearing a suit. Is he one of the suits Errol Spence is talking about? Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life for riches, huh? That life for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. All right, so we're gonna talk about what Errol Spence said lately about suits. Okay, as you can see, before we get to that, before we get to Errol, let's talk about what Bob Arum said. Previous to what Errol Spence said. Okay, so a couple of days ago, Bob Arum said that Errol Spence was holding up the fight between Crawford and Spence. Okay, there's the article right here in Boxing News. You can go and check it out for yourself. Okay, I'm just going to show you the headline. Okay, January 28th, 2021. Bob Arum, Errol Spence is holding up the Crawford fight. So he went on to elaborate that, everybody wants to fight except for Spence, and that, don't blame Al Heyman, don't blame PBC, blame Spence, because he said that Al Heyman was amenable to the fight, meaning that Al Heyman, wanted to make the fight, but it was Spence that was saying no. Now, I told, in one of my last videos before that I was hearing, from some people, some inside info about the PBC that, Errol Spence was basically getting in the way of making a fight with, with Crawford, and that, they wanted to make that fight with Crawford, but it was Errol Spence, that was basically putting up roadblocks to the fight. Now, I heard this from a different source than Bob Arum. I heard this like about, maybe almost 2 weeks ago now. Okay. So I was hearing that a lot of people in the PBC hierarchy, was saying that Errol Spence didn't want this fight with Terrence Crawford. So this is coming from PBC people. And they're talking about that inside the PBC. And then, like, not even a week later, we see Bob Arum comes out and says, Spence is holding up the fight, and don't blame Al Heyman, and don't blame PBC. It's Errol Spence that's stopping the fight. And we all know Errol Spence claims that he doesn't have a promoter. He just has an advisor, and that he's his own promoter. So basically, if Errol Spence is his own promoter, he makes the fight. Nobody can force him to fight, really. Nobody. I mean, most of the time, most of these fighters, nobody really forces them to fight. They fight if they want to fight. Okay, basically that's what it comes down to. Because we see what's going on with the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury don't want to fight Deontay Wilder, so more than likely that fight is not going to happen, no matter what the networks or the promoters want. Okay, so from what we're hearing, we already know that the boxing community wants to fight. Okay. Between Crawford and Spence, fans want to fight, the networks want to fight. Okay, now we're hearing that PBC wants to fight. I mean, that's what I heard anyway from inside, inside scoop. I'm hearing from, let's just say, the grapevine. Okay, that they want to make this fight, but the problem is Errol Spence. He doesn't want to make the fight. He doesn't want this fight with Terrence Crawford. So when Bob Arum comes out and says this now, it's not anything new, really. Okay, so I'm not sure where Bob got how he got the info, but I mean he's been in boxing forever, so I'm pretty sure he got his sources inside different camps, and can know what's going on. So he comes out and he makes, he makes a comment about this Errol Spence situation and not wanting to fight. Okay, so what happens? Not even 2 days later, Errol Spence comes out and says boxers getting screwed over by suits. Now, if you notice this headline, it doesn't say boxers getting screwed over by Bob Arum. Okay, it says by suits. Okay, that means people in suits, management. Okay, executives. Okay, So if you was talking about just specifically Bob Arum, I'm sure he would have said Bob Arum because he had made comments about Bob Arum before. You know, like for example, saying Bob Arum needs to stop lying, blah blah this, blah blah that. So here he's not saying Bob Arum needs to stop lying. He's saying, you know, he's tired of boxers getting screwed over by suits. So you can go and check the article out, you know, yourself. There it is in the Boxing Voice. So like I said in my, you know, headline, the last time I checked, you know, and every time, as a matter of fact, every time I've checked, Al Heyman is wearing a suit. Okay? So, you know, and then the next thing we're hearing, like I said, is that, you know, Bob Arum is saying that don't blame Al Heyman. Okay? It's only Errol Spence that don't want to fight. So we see, you know, we just got to put two and two together. Okay? So it looks like they're putting pressure on Errol Spence to take the fight with Crawford, and he doesn't want to fight. Okay, so he comes out and he's saying suits. He's not going to say Al Heyman out of his mouth. He's not going to say, you know, the PBC hierarchy or the people, the matchmakers in PBC. He says suits, you know, to be politically correct, basically. So it looks like they're putting pressure on him to make the fight, and he's telling them, nah, you know, I don't want to make the fight, and blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. He's talking about how, you know, they want him to just basically shut up and fight. Okay, and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, so we can put two and two together. Okay, and basically what it looks like to me is that, you know, they're telling them, man, forget about this 60-40 business, man. Okay, just go ahead and make the fight 50-50. Okay, so we can get that fight. Just say 50-50 and we'll take that fight. But that's his getaway card. Okay, talking about percentages is Errol Spence's getaway card. Okay, you can keep talking that and, you know, act like he's not ducking Terrence Crawford, but just say he wants 60%. And, you know, it doesn't seem like he's ducking, but everybody know he's ducking. Okay, I mean, it's common knowledge by now, but because, like I said, even the people in the PBC is saying that he doesn't want to fight. So, you know, the pressure is on Errol Spence. Okay, and you see that, you know, he's coming out and saying suits. You know, he don't want to get screwed over by the suit. So he's probably talking about some of the people in his own, you know, organization, because he's making a general statements about suits. He's not talking about Bob Arum specifically. Okay, so it doesn't matter putting two and two together, people. That's all it is. Okay, so it looks like the pressure is on him. Okay, they want to make this because, you know, at the end of the day, it's a big fight for everybody. The network's gonna make a lot of money. You know, ESPN, Fox, PBC, Top Rank, all these guys. It's the biggest, one of the biggest money fights in boxing right now. So everybody wants to make this fight. You know, Terrence Crawford wants it, and so as we have seen over the last 2 years, the only person that's been putting up roadblocks between, you know, between this fight happening has been Errol Spence and his PBC fanboys out there, you know, the fans out there, you know, some of these LDBC guys who are basically forming the what I call the Spence Protection Brigade. You know, they put everything in front of this fight happening, you know, all kind of excuses, other side of the street, you know, 60-40, 70-30, heavy lifting, you know, not selling. You know, everybody knows that's nonsense about not selling. This is going to be the biggest selling fight in boxing right now. You know, maybe the first or second biggest selling fight. This fight will sell, okay? And it's not going to just sell because of Errol Spence alone, you know, contrary to what people are talking about. It's going to sell because Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence is coming together to make this fight. So it's really a 50-50 fight, you know, in terms of, you know, money, you know. But again, like I said, the 60-40 talking point, you know, is Errol Spence get out of the fight card, okay? He can keep using that to get out of the fight without, you know, actually saying he don't want to fight, okay? So here you see him coming out and saying, you know, I don't want to get screwed by the suits, because they're probably telling him, listen, Errol Spence, let's make this fight, man. Forget about the 60-40 nonsense you're talking about, man. Everybody want to make this fight. It's a big money fight. You're going to make a lot of money, let's make this fight for 50-50 and forget about 60-40. And so he's saying, no. Okay. He's talking about getting screwed over by the suits and about people telling him to just fight and be quiet. And he's not going to just fight and be quiet. So there it is, people. It's plain as day, okay? It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It's not rocket science, okay? They're putting the pressure on him to make the fight, but he don't want to make the fight, okay? Luckily for him, this whole, luckily for Errol Spence, that is, this whole Ugas thing, happened right now. So it looks like he might get a reprieve in terms of not having to make the Crawford fight right away. But at the end of the day, the Ugas fight, if they do that unification, it's not going to make a lot of money in terms of pay-per-view. That's not the fight that everybody's looking for. Okay, so it's not going to be a big fight per se. Via pay-per-view. Okay, it's going to be a decent fight, but I doubt if it's going to do any more pay-per-view. If they even go to pay-per-view, they might not even go to pay-per-view. It might just be a free fight. Okay, and if they go to pay-per-view, I don't think it's going to do any more than say the Danny Garcia fight, or it's not going to do as much as the Mikey Garcia fight, for example, and it's not going to do as much as the Sean Porter fight, which didn't really do that well, and neither did the Danny Garcia fight. That fight didn't do that well either. Okay, so from what I'm hearing, that fight had less than 200, around 200 pay-per-view. The Danny Garcia fight, okay? And in that Danny Garcia fight, everybody was expecting the fight to do 600 or 700,000 pay-per-view, but it only did about 200,000, okay? So the fight was, way under what they expected, okay? And so nobody really got paid, too much out of that fight, okay? Including the people that put the fight on. Luckily, I guess the only thing that was good about the fight was the the gate. They had I think 16,000 fans. That's what the stadium was allowing. So I don't know how many fans actually showed up, but the fight overall didn't really do that well. It performed below expectations. Okay, so now, all right. So here comes the Ugas fight. Errol Spence, all of a sudden, with this Ugas fight, strap season came out of retirement and out of hiding. Okay, because as you know, we haven't seen strap season for a while now. Errol Spence used to talk about strap season before, before Crawford was at welterweight. That's all Errol Spence talked about was strap season. He wanted to collect all the straps. As soon as Terrence Crawford came to welterweight and started making noise, strap season, was over with. When they started calling for the Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight, we didn't hear nothing about strap season. Strap season went into hiding, went into retirement. He retired strap season, okay. But now, all of a sudden that Ugas has a belt and he feels that he could take the belt off of Ugas. Strap season just comes out of hiding and out of retirement now, and he's up there talking about strap season again and talking about all you had to have is something that I want. Talking about the belt that Ugas have, okay, the WBA belt. So that, now it's strap season now. It's not strap season when it comes to Crawford's belt. Okay, you don't hear him talk about strap season when it comes to that belt. All you hear him talking about when it comes to the Crawford belt is 60-40, other side of the street, heavy lifting, don't want to get screwed over by the suits, okay, all this, anything not to make the fight happen, okay? And strap season, way, in hiding and in deep retirement. So, again, this fight with Ugas probably won't do that well. Well, definitely it's not going to do as good as Crawford Spence. We know that for a fact, okay? And so he's pushing for the fight. I mean, Ugas didn't even have the belt 1 hour, and Spence was calling him out. I mean, look at what a difference a belt makes, right? What a difference a fighter makes. I mean, for 2 years, we're trying to get the Crawford Spence fight, and, there's all kind of reasons why he don't want to make that fight. And then in less than an hour, he's making the Ugas fight. It's an amazing, man. So you see, when we talk about people, you can see that when a fighter wants to make a fight, it's going to happen. When he doesn't want to make a fight, there's all kind of excuses, that's put up there, and we see plain as day now that Errol Spence did not want and still do not want the Crawford fight under any circumstance. Even his own PBC organization want the fight, and he still don't want it. He's criticizing them and talking about suits. Okay, he don't want to get screwed over by suits. Okay, because they're trying to make him take this fight at a 50-50 probably. So it is what it is, though. Okay, the funny thing is this, and I said it before. It would be funny now if Errol Spence was to take this fight with Ugas and end up losing his belts for less money than he would have gotten against Crawford if he would have lost to Crawford. Okay, it would be very ironic. He'd be in the Keith Thurman category if something like that was to happen. On the outside looking in, while Ugas go ahead to make the big fight with Crawford and get the big money. Okay, so I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it could well happen. Now, by all accounts, Errol Spence should be able to beat, he should be able to beat Ugas, and which is why he's so eager to fight Ugas, because he thinks he can beat Ugas. Okay, he's not going to fight. That's why he's not eager to fight Crawford, because he doesn't think he can beat Crawford. So you see the difference. Okay, it is what it is. We got to call it like it is. We can't sugarcoat this thing and make it try to be something that it's not. Okay, he's been ducking Crawford, but he's not ducking Ugas. He's not talking about 60-40 Ugas. He's not talking about he's doing all the heavy lifting. He's not talking about Ugas having fight nobody. None of the excuses that he's been making for Crawford fight is he making now for Ugas. Okay, he's not negotiating the media with the percentages. He doesn't mention it about 60-40, 50-50 or whatever. Okay, and neither of his fans. So his fans, are all eager for him to get this fight as well, because they all think that he can beat Ugas. So basically, what they're doing. It's ironic what this guy is doing to the welterweight division. Errol Spence, who claims that he's the big fish in the welterweight, he's turning the welterweight division into the WWE, Worldwide Wrestling. Okay, he only want to fight people he know he can beat. Okay, he only want to fight, a fight where what the outcome is going to be already before the fight even starts. Okay, this is what Errol Spence is doing to the welterweight division. Okay, by ducking Crawford and fighting all these guys, he think he could, he know he can beat, like Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, guys that nobody thought that Errol Spence was going to lose against any of these guys. Okay, so this is what, and at the end of the day, when you look at the fights, what did he accomplish at welterweight? People keep talking about his record at welterweight, his record, but at the end of the day, he beat the good fight. The one good fight he had was Kell Brook, okay, and then after he beat Kell Brook, what did Errol Spence do? He fought the guy that Kell Brook beat, which was Sean Porter. Okay? And then after he fought Sean Porter, what was his next fight? He fought the guy that Sean Porter beat, Danny Garcia. So he's not moving up, he's moving down. Okay? So, it is what it is, people. We got to really look at this and, call it like we see it, because, it is what it is. So we got to, just take a clear look at what's going on. I can understand the fanboys out there, when that's their guy and they're trying to make it look good, and dress it up, but again, like I always say, if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to change. It's just going to be lipstick on a pig. So it is what it is. So yeah, now Errol Spence is complaining about the suits because he's getting pressure from people to make the fight, and he's probably getting pressure from his own camp, in terms of the PBC, to make the fight, because as we saw, Bob Arum came out and said that, Al Heyman wants to make the fight, and that the only person that doesn't want to fight is Errol Spence. And like I said, I've been hearing that from, other sources, that inside the PBC organization, they've been saying that Errol Spence don't want any smoke with Terrence Crawford. Okay, it looks like they're getting frustrated with that and don't actually want to make the fight, because like I say, it's a big money fight for everybody involved, okay, including Errol Spence. But He doesn't want it. So it is what it is, people. So I'm not gonna take up any more of your time with this one. Okay, we all know what's going on. Okay, I just wanted to lay that out there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, people. Okay, you know, subscribe to the channel. Okay, so you can get the latest and, you know, the real commentary instead of fanboy commentary from a lot of these people out there. Okay, this is TBE Boxing. That's all I have. I'm out. Okay, boxing fans. I got one more video to play for you guys if you want to stick around, if you're not doing anything tonight. So I'm going to play another video for you. Okay, from the TBE Boxing archives. Okay. Now, you already, if you've been around for a while, you have listened to a lot of the, you know, what I'm calling the Duck Chronicles. Okay. Videos about, you know, the ducking of Terrence Crawford by Errol Spence. Okay, so as you know, Errol Spence has been ducking Terrence Crawford for years now. So I'm gonna play one more video if you want to listen to this one as well, or watch this one as well. Here it is. Okay, I'm queuing it up now. You can check it out. More of the Duck Chronicles from TBE Boxing. Okay. What's up, boxing fans? Let's check it out. This is TBE Boxing. Let's see what it's all about. Back at you again. Today's topic: Errol Spence's LDBC fanboys' new excuse for him ducking Crawford is that Bob Arum don't want the fight. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about. Yes. Check this one out.
This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, This is the life that I chose, on the block with the pole, That life is for riches, That life is for riches, Pretty bitch show me titties, And I got the glaze, you run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. All right, so new developments between the Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford continuing saga. The Errol Spence Protection Brigade is out in full force. Okay, trying to protect Errol Spence from his own actions, or should we say his inaction when it comes to this fight with Terrence Crawford. So the latest we are hearing from the LDBC fanboys that's, you know, protecting Errol Spence, you know, the guys that formed the Errol Spence Protection Brigade, is that Bob Arum don't want to fight. And why are they saying that? Well, because Bob Arum just recently came out and said that, you know, the fight can happen, but the only person actually standing in the way of the fight is Errol Spence. And that Hal Ayman, you know, wants the fight to happen, but Errol Spence is saying no. Now, you know, the funny thing about that is this. I've also heard from somebody else, not, you know, not Bob Arum or his team, but from someone else in the, you know, someone else, you know, that does boxing commentary, who has some inside, you know, who got inside knowledge about what's really going on, that Errol Spence really don't want to fight. That the people in the Al Heyman, you know, team inside the, you know, the PBC hierarchy, you know, they all, the matchmakers, everybody else, they all know that, you know, Errol Spence doesn't really want that fight with Terrence Crawford. This is what they're saying in the PBC. Okay. So the fact that Bob Arum comes out and says this now, you know, just basically confirms all of that. And, you know, so it's pretty much general knowledge. It's not just, you know, people out, you know, in the YTBC and the general public that knows that Errol Spence doesn't want this fight. It's even people inside the PBC, people who have, you know, who are in the know, people that, you know, do boxing 24/7. Everyone knows that Errol Spence doesn't want this fight. Okay, it's becoming common knowledge now, in and out of boxing. Okay, so it's hard to, you know, cover it up anymore. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. So Errol Spence, one thing about Errol Spence though, shout out to Errol Spence. One thing about Errol Spence, he's great at fighting on Twitter. Okay, but he'll challenge Crawford on Twitter. He'll fight with Crawford on Twitter, but he doesn't want to go in the ring and fight with Crawford at all. Okay, and this is what we're seeing. He's great, Mr. Twitter Fingers. He's a warrior on Twitter, but when he's in front of Crawford, look at this picture that we're looking at right now. Look at Crawford. Look at him, all up in Errol Spence's face, and look what Errol Spence is doing, trying to look away, look the other way. Crawford is all up in his space and in his face, and you can clearly see that Spence don't want any smoke with Crawford. Take a look at the picture. This is not a Photoshop picture. This is the actual picture taken from the video. Okay, so this is what we are looking at. So now, the Errol Spence Brigade is out there now after Bob Arum came out and said what he said. And now they're out there talking about the reason why the fight is not happening is because Bob Arum don't want to fight. You see it? I mean, these guys come up with all kinds of excuses. I mean, excuse after excuse after excuse. First it was the other side of the street. Then it's 60-40. Then it's 70-30. Then it's this. Then it's I can fight CARNE-LO. Then it's, all kind of excuses why, they're not making this Crawford fight. Errol Spence have every excuse in the book. All the excuses that you can come up with. Now, the new excuse is Bob Arum don't want to fight. How much sense does that really make? That's the biggest fight in boxing. Why wouldn't Bob Arum want to fight? And the funny thing about these guys, LDBC guys and these, Spence Protection Brigade, is that, they always call Bob Arum a liar. Okay? But when Bob Arum says something negative about Crawford, they all co-sign that. He's telling the truth all of a sudden. When he's talking about Crawford, like, oh, Crawford don't sell this, that, and the other. He can build a mansion and all. Oh, they all bring that up when they're talking about why Errol Spence should get 60-40. They bring up what Bob Arum is saying. Oh, well, his promoter is saying this. His promoter is saying that. But when Bob Arum says something else that, they don't agree with, he's a liar. You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways, man. It is what it is. But, I'm not going to go into a long dissertation on this. We're going to go to the videotape, okay? We're going to go to all of Errol Spence's excuses. We're going to go and hear what Errol Spence is saying out of his own mouth, okay? So, but before we do that, let's hear even Errol Spence's trainer, Derek James, his coach, is coming out to make excuses why the fight shouldn't happen. Okay? And let's go to the videotape. Enough talking. Let's check this out.
Shot or what? He still got other guys he's gonna fight or whatever. His fight schedule may be planned out. You know what I'm saying? Like, after this one, we got another big one, We want to get the 3 belts, whatever the case may be. But hey, listen, man, I think that fight will possibly happen. But I think that if you think about it like this, Errol can fight Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. He can fight Pacquiao. He can fight Danny Garcia. He can fight Ugas. He can fight all these guys. So his legacy has nothing to do with fighting Terrence Crawford.
Sure I met Al Haines. I met Al Haines. I know. Personally. So have I. What do you say? Can we get both of them in the ring? Can we get both of them in the ring? He said, I'm fighting Mikey. Then I might fight Sean Porter, Keith Thurman.
So he didn't mention Terrence, huh?
He didn't.
The smartest thing you can do is to stay away from Terrence. That's the smartest thing.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that. You're a legendary promoter. I like that. I like that. You're the best in the business. I like that.
He been around this long.
You're a legendary promoter. I like that.
So he know fight.
Like end of 2019. Did you not say that? Did you not say that? That's what your promoter said.
This is what I'm saying.
I read it all.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I read it all too. Terrence Crawford, wait till he get a belt. Yeah, he ain't did nothing in the welterweight today. When he get a belt, you want to go over there. Keith Thurman want to go over there, and now y'all want to say, "Oh, I ain't fought nobody," but I got a belt now, so why?
Okay. Sean Porter got a belt too.
So now
Sean Porter got a belt too. Sean Porter. So why am I go to easy road and not Sean Porter out? So why am I go to easy road and not Sean Porter out? So why am I go to easy road and not Sean Porter out? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? You a smart man.
Is the Spence you fought last September at Staples, would that guy beat Crawford, or from what you know?
That guy was very good.
Mm-hmm.
He was good to the point where the last round, we came in, we touched gloves. Normally it just touch gloves and you fight, but I touched gloves with him and I said, good shit, boy, because the work was that good and the night was that good and that competitive, and I wanted it, and I could tell that he wanted it too. Does that fighter beat Terrence Crawford? That fighter was strong. That fighter was very good. I saw some holes. I saw that I was a step ahead of him a majority of that fight. And saying that, no, I don't think that fighter can beat Terrence Crawford. But I've already said that in the match, I don't think Errol Spence could beat Terrence Crawford. I think that Terrence wins that fight. I think he's got more in his arsenal.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights. And you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terrence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford?
I mean, that could happen. We got to see how it go. But, you know, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight CARNE-LO ALVAREZ.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. I don't see it happening. Why would you go up north and face CARNE-LO, but you won't face Terrence Crawford in the same weight class as you?
Thank you.
That's a money thing for him. You know, I think that Spence is at a point now, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I think he's just wants to get the money, and then he wants to lead the game. That's it. He has no intentions on fighting Terrence Crawford. And I think that even if Terrence Crawford was to jump ship and to go over there to PBC, I still don't see the fight happening over there, and I stand by that until they actually sign and fight.
I know you already talked about getting back to the ranch, very understandable. But what did you think of Terrence showing up ringside? Do you think that helps build some buzz to make it a big fight?
No. I mean, he gotta live up to his words. If he say he's not worried about me, then I don't know why he doing what he was doing here. I probably wouldn't go to none of his fights, so I'm not worried about Terrence Crawford. Like I said, I'm going to enjoy my time with my kids and chill out and just reflect on this year and a half that, you know, I came back, and, you know, we're going to move on in the summertime and see who I fight. So we'll see. I got to talk to my manager, Al Heyman, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So there it is. Okay. What more do we need to know? Okay. People keep saying that Errol Spence wants to fight. Errol Spence wants to fight. No, he doesn't want to fight. And he's saying it to you in many different ways. He doesn't want to fight. Okay. Terrence Crawford have him shook. Okay. And it is what it is. We have to face reality. Okay. You know, those are the facts. Okay. So people could say what they want, you know, but, you know, all this talk about 60-40, 70-30, you know, just goes to show that Errol Spence really doesn't want this fight. So the latest thing, you know, these guys talking about now that, you know, now the Spence Protection Brigade is out there talking about Bob Arum doesn't want to fight. And that's the new talking point. That's the new narrative. I heard that on from our Contender Regime. Shout out to Contender Regime. Okay, that's his new talking point. You know, because Errol Spence is really looking bad out there, people. Okay, he's looking like a duck. Okay, I mean, everyone knows it now. Okay, in boxing and out of boxing. I mean, it's hard to avoid the fact that Errol Spence is ducking Terrence Crawford. I mean, it's just blatant ducking, and everyone sees it. So Errol Spence is out there looking real shaky. He's looking real bad right now. So out comes the Spence Protection Brigade trying to prop him up, okay? You know, trying to prop him up to make him look better. You know, now it's Bob Arum that doesn't want to fight. So you have Contender Regime, you know, realizing his boy, you know, Errol Spence is looking shaky. So he's trying to pop him up. He comes with this shaky video, you know. I mean, you can see that in the video, he doesn't even believe what he's saying, okay? But he's out there talking about, oh, well, you know, it's Bob Arum this and it's Bob Arum that. You know, but we all know the deal. We all saw the video just now. Errol Spence don't want this fight. And no amount of propping up is going to make him look bad, you know, make him look good, Okay, he's just looking shaky right now because he is shaky. Okay, now the latest I'm hearing about is the fact that he's talking about his legacy in terms of money and talking about other fighters who are legends and who retired and what are they doing money wise. Well, if you really worried about money, Errol Spence, the biggest fight in your career will be Terrence Crawford. That's where you're gonna make the most money. So why aren't you, running towards that fight if you're so much worried about money? So we can see that this talk about money is just another smoke screen, okay? Because if he was really worried about making money, he'll be trying to get that Terrence Crawford fight because that's the money he's gonna make. That's the fight where he's gonna make the most money in his entire career. Okay, he could probably make retirement money in that fight if he really wanted to. Okay, so we can see his thing about being worried about his legacy after boxing in terms of his financial situation is just another smoke screen in many of smoke. I mean, it's so bad that you have Letitia Crawford, Terrence Crawford's sister, calling out Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? And talking about how he's ducking Terrence Crawford. I mean, Errol Spence is really looking bad out there right now, man. It's not a good look at all. Okay, I mean, you have a woman, Errol Spence's sister calling you out. Okay, so I mean, people, quiet as kept, and people might not believe this, even though because I make a lot of videos about Errol Spence ducking, because the reason I'm making these videos is because he's ducking, so I'm going to call it like I see it. But I like Errol Spence, okay? I think he's a very intelligent guy, okay? Which is probably why he doesn't want to fight Crawford, okay? And I think he's a fundamentally good boxer. I think he has the fundamentals, good jab, a lot of good skills as a boxer. But I just don't think that, he would beat Terrence Crawford. Now, we don't know how the fight is going to play out. He might play out one way or the other. We don't know. But in order for us to know, the fight has to happen. And then, Errol Spence has to step in the ring, but he doesn't want to do that for whatever reason. And, I think we more or less know what that reason is. Okay? Crawford is no joke. So to go in there against Crawford is a big risk. And so we see him talking about his legacy in terms of his financial stability after the fight, because he's worried about, probably getting retired by Crawford. That fight might be, because we already know what Crawford's going to go in there and do. He's not going to go in there and play. He's going in there to get the knockout. Okay? And he's going in there to basically, seek and destroy. That's what he's all about. So we can't really, in a lot of, so that's why I don't really, even though I keep calling for the fight, I understand why Errol Spence, has reservations about taking this fight with Crawford, and we can see his reservations. He has every excuse in the book, so it is what it is. But at the end of the day, based on what we have seen so far, there's only one thing, there's only one way this fight's going to happen. We're going to have to drag Errol Spence into the ring, kicking and screaming, to make this fight happen with Terrence Crawford. It's not going to happen any other way. Okay? The fans, the YTBC, everybody's going to have to drag Errol Spence into the ring against Crawford, because he's not going to step in there voluntarily. Okay? No matter what his fanboys out there talking about. Okay, they can make all the excuses they want to, but we already know what the deal is. So that's the only way the fight is going to happen. Okay, so Errol Spence, is going to continue to make more excuses. He's going to, his protection brigade, the LDBC, is going to come up with more excuses. He's going to co-sign them, and they're going to keep making excuses as to why this fight should not happen. We already seen all the excuses they've been making so far, and it's going to continue in that way. Okay. And it is what it is. So, I mean, I'm not going to go too long on this video because, there's no point in beating a dead horse, okay? We already know that he don't want to fight, okay? This new talking point or narrative they got out now about Bob Arum don't want to fight, and more smoke screen, okay? And like I said, even the PBC people know that he doesn't want to fight, okay? And it is what it is. And so we just got to face the reality of it, you know what I'm saying? And, who knows? Maybe he might get an epiphany. That is Errol Spence, and he might decide to get in the ring. He might get a moment of, courage or whatever, and decide to step in that ring against Crawford. But I'm not gonna hold my breath. Okay, you know, at this point, I don't really see it happening. You know, I think that the boogeyman, Terrence Crawford, you know, have Errol Spence shook to the core. Okay. And I don't see, he's talking about his legacy after. I mean, what do we need to see or hear? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he's talking about what's going to happen to him financially after the fight now. Okay, this is what he's talking about now. He's worried about that. The fight is not even happened yet. He hasn't even gotten in the ring yet, but he's talking about that. And again, if you're worried about finances, then you should be taking the fight. It's the biggest fight of your career. So why are you avoiding the biggest money maker of your career if you're really worried about money? So none of this stuff doesn't make any sense, what Errol Spence is saying, okay, or his team, okay? I mean, it is what it is. So, I'm not going to keep going on with this. We already know what time it is. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, okay? So you can get all the latest, on what's really going on, not what the fanboys are out there talking about and their narratives and their talking points. Just make sure you log on to my YouTube page. Subscribe to the channel. That's all I have right now. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel before you leave out. Okay. Tune in for my next video. I'll be doing another one sometime tomorrow. Okay. Just make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Okay. This is TBE Boxing. We're gonna leave it there for tonight. This was been a rebroadcast, a marathon, of Crawford and Spence Duck Chronicles. This has been the Duck Chronicles. Again, people, subscribe to the channel. Just click on the subscription and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of the next video. All right. So thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. I see a lot of you guys stayed in there and watched the all of the videos. I appreciate that. Tune in next time. I'm gonna log off right now. Thanks again. This is TBE Boxing. I'm out.